It's a Monday, the commencement of a new week. Welcome to the AM News. My name is Pakwisi Shandoff. To a very first story, President Akufo-Addo has pledged his support to help empowering the girl child in Ghana and across Africa through education and tough actions against child marriage. He spoke at the Global Citizen Festival in Accra, where thousands gathered at the Black Star Square to push global leaders to take urgent action for girls, the planet, and also to end extreme poverty. Now, the event was held simultaneously in New York and streamed across the globe. President Akufo-Addo, who is the AU gender champion, was the special guest of honor.
Our world sadly is not on track to achieve the 17 development goals. Extreme poverty is on the rise, inequality is growing, and our planet is heading towards a dangerous tipping point as a result of climate change. Developments which have been exacerbated by the effects of COVID-19 and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have a limited window of opportunity to act decisively to lift millions of people out of poverty, promote inclusiveness and equality, and safeguard the health of our planet. Each one of us has a sacred and moral obligation to bequeath to the next generation a healthy planet free from poverty, conflict, discrimination, hunger, and disease. I call on the youth of the world especially, and in particular the youth of Africa, to play an active role in achieving the SDGs. The world needs your creativity, your knowledge, your reach, and your energy to help find innovative solutions to the challenges facing our world. Step up on advocacy on the SDGs, and where necessary, stimulate change by raising awareness of the socioeconomic and environmental problems that plague communities and our planets. Global citizens, fellow Africans, I'm delighted to announce, together with my brother and respected colleague from South Africa, President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, my co-champion in African prosperity, the launch of the Africa Prosperity Fund, the $1 billion African Fund for Africans, by Africans. It will fund strategic and transformational projects on the continent in the areas of infrastructure development, financial access and participation of women and youth, education, healthcare, technology, and sustainability, so that we leave no one behind in Africa. It will be done within the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, as we immerse ourselves in the recovery and reconstruction of our economies and nations across this great continent of ours. I extend our appreciation to Aspen Pharmacare, the South African multinational pharmaceutical company, the first to commit to this fund. And I invite other corporates and individuals alike to be part of this historical journey towards the creation of African prosperity for the Africa we want.
Well, there was a brief moment where the president was booed by the crowd while on stage. Now, still staying on this development, more than 60 musicians from across the world took part in the event, including Ghana's own Sarkodie, Stonebwoy, and Rabies superstar Asha. Will bring you a wrap at the end of this bulletin. Away from that, Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia says that the National Muslim Conference would serve as a conduit that connects government and the Zongos to accelerate development in historically relegated communities. He also added that as part of the administration's comprehensive developmental agenda, no community, including the inner cities and the Zongos, will be left behind. Dr. Bawumia said this at the second National Muslim Conference here in Accra.
The second National Muslim Conference brought together politicians, business owners, and Islamic scholars. The mission is to deliberately change the status of the Zongo communities that are synonymous with crime and underdevelopment. Minority Chief Whip and MP for Aswasi constituency, Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, underscored the need for influential Muslims and Muslim businesses to support the educational and economic empowerment strategy. The strategy, according to him, is the only tool Muslims in Ghana can use to transition from underdevelopment to compete with the urbanized parts of the country.
I wish to state emphatically at this stage that all the laudable educational and economic empowerment strategy being put up by the conference will not be materialized if Ghanaian Muslims fail to raise the necessary resources to finance them. We need to generate resources locally, internationally, to be able to implement our program. We intend putting up model schools, health facilities to meet the needs of the Ghanaian Muslims. We need to put up technical and vocational training centers to lift our people out of the poverty through skills development and competitive entrepreneurship capacity. I want to take this opportunity to
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who delivered the keynote address, called on Muslim parents to invest in educating the next generation of Muslims to change the status quo.
I am very much convinced that educating our people and empowering them economically with functional skills are the only realistic ways to alleviate our people from extreme poverty and underdevelopment. Indeed, several studies have established a strong link between education and social mobility. I believe that with the right educational policies and support for uninterrupted schooling, as we have implemented through the free TVET and free senior high school education and a guarantor-free access to loans for tertiary education, a child from any background in the country should not have any barrier for their development.
He also urged the Muslim community to uphold the rich tolerance among Muslims and Christians in Ghana, which is the envy of neighboring countries.
Doubt that Ghanaian Muslims and Christians are unique and are able to join hands and work together and excel in various fields from sports to politics. The beautiful spectre of a Jummah congregation around Nima roundabout in Accra, extending to the frontage of a church premises, the site of the National Chief Imam in a chapel to exchange pleasantries with Christian leaders, and a Christian president teaming up with a Muslim vice president in the case of my boss and I, are some of the beautiful examples of what Muslims and Christians can do together at our workplaces, communities, and the nation.
The educational and economic empowerment strategy is expected to be pursued aggressively by the conference, which will be held annually.
Now, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin has faulted policymakers for what he terms the failure to close the widening gap between the poor and rich in the country. According to him, even though many more Guineans are falling into the vulnerable category or below the poverty line, there are not adequate measures to address the situation. Speaking during a donation to Hopeland Training Center at Ajem Kotoku to mark his birthday on Saturday, Mr. Bagbin demanded more action in tackling poverty in Ghana.
I am aware as a political leader that is so much we need to do to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich. between the deprived, the marginalized, and the affluent. The gap is so yawning, and the efforts at mitigating the situation are so few and far between. That is my worry, and I believe the worry of many of you gathered here, men and women of conscience. I thank you so much for allowing me to associate with this initiative, and particularly using my special day, 65 years. It's not a small thing. Many could not reach there. And the lifespan in Ghana, that is the average years for a Ghanaian, is 64 years. And now I continue to adopt 64. So if I am 65, alhamdulillah, I thank God for the 65 years.
A regional sensitization workshop organized by the National Development Planning Commission and aimed at engaging the public on Ghana's voluntary national review reports and building consensus on innovative actions for the attainment of the SDGs was held in the Techiman municipality of the Bono East region. The workshop, according to Vitus Bonbuo, a senior statistician at the Ghana Statistical Service, is to, among other things, provide an insight into the progress made, challenges learned, and the way forward towards the achievement of the SDGs and the AU Agenda 2063. And Asabet has the rest of the story.
A two-day workshop on Ghana's 2022 Voluntary National Review Report on the Sustainable Development Goals has been held in the Techiman municipality of the Bono East region. The workshop is to, amongst other things, provide an insight into the progress made, challenges and lessons learned, as well as identifies catalytic and transformative priorities and the way forward towards their achievements. Vitus Bonbuo is a senior statistician at the Ghana Statistical Service.
The whole essence of this dissemination exercise is that Ghana reported on the VNR the second time at the UN General Assembly in July. And as a follow-up to also let Ghanaians know what took place at the UN, Ghana decided to probably organize a district dissemination on the VNR to let people at the grassroots level really understand the whole idea about this VNR and what Ghana captured on in the second time of reporting. What I will basically say on is that with these SDG indicators, it is driven by what? Data. Without data, we cannot report on the indicators. So we would encourage that all institutions who are into data production should step up their data production level, so that at the end we can have enough indicators to report on the indicators next round when we go to the UN to report on the SDGs for Ghana.
Bono East Regional Minister Kwesi Edujan on his part noted that the region's development drive largely depends on the indicators for the Sustainable Development Goals.
The pivot for development in the region are threefold: agriculture, education, and industrialization. And these are very, very important when it comes to the SDG goals. Because looking at all the SDG goals, the ultimate goal is to eradicate poverty, So with all the development plans or the development agenda that we have as a region, I think we fall into that goal.
Some of the participants lauded the organization of the workshop as it has exposed them to the importance of the SDGs and the AU Agenda 2063. Regional Information Officer Desmond Tutu on his part stated that the program has been educative and participants will serve as ambassadors to help educate others on the Voluntary National Report.
Today we have been here at the Bono Champion Hall at the invitation of the National Development Planning Commission, NDPC, to take us through the Voluntary National Review program, and we have learned a lot about what we also have to contribute to make this SDGs work to bring development into our lives. So it has been very educative, and all of us are going home to be ambassadors of what we have come to learn here. It's very, very good.
Anna Sabit, JoyNews, Techiman.
Now, as part of efforts aimed at helping Ghana achieve its 10-year cashew development plan, which seeks to increase the country's cashew production of 80,000 MT in 2018 to over 300,000 MT within 10 years, MIDA, in collaboration with the Ghana Standards Authority through its Farmers' Economic Advancement through Seedlings project, developed a new code for practice for cashew planting material production. The new document, according to the country director for MIDA, Robert Austin, would aid nursery operators to produce healthy cashew planting materials, which would in turn improve the productivity of the commodity across the country. And Nasabet once more.
The Farmers' Economic Advancement through Seedlings project, implemented by MIDA and funded by the Global Affairs Canada, is to, amongst other things, provide support to small cashew nursery operators to produce quality seedlings to meet Ghana's 10-year cashew development plan. Country Director for MIDA, Robert Austin, disclosed at a regional sensitization forum held in Techiman that the Code of Practice and its pictorial version is to set out a framework for good nursery practice which would aid nursery operators to produce healthy cashew planting materials in Ghana.
One of the focus of the FEEDS projects, as you can see from its name, Farmers' Economic Advancement through Seedlings, was to improve access to quality planting material. Now, we identified existing small enterprises, popularly referred to as nursery operators, who were already within the cashew value chain, and improved their infrastructure as well as gave them training on best nursery practices. And to have a lasting impact on the industry, MIDA Ghana engaged the Ghana Standards Authority to develop a code of practice for cashew planting material production.
He further noted that for Ghana to achieve its plan of producing 300,000 metric tons of cashew within the next 10 years, there is the need to produce quality seedlings, hence the need for a good reference material.
As far as we are concerned, it has not been enough to engage in a few days training and to leave them to their fate, but to give them a good reference material so that they can continuously maintain a high level of practice.
Robert Austin was, however, quick to note that the 26 trained nursery operators would extend their knowledge and skills to others to enable Ghana meet its demand for quality seedlings within the next 10 years.
By training some 26 nursery operators, we believe that out of these 26 would grow other nursery operators, so that the challenge of getting supply of quality seedlings will be completely eliminated over time and ensure that Ghana sustains a high productive cashew industry.
Some of the participants highlighted some of the importance of the workshop and are thankful to MIDA for the engagement. Adams Al-Hassan is the chairman of the Nkranza North Cashew Farmers Association.
I've learned a lot with the experience in the meeting. What I saw is there's one thing we the farmers who have to experience. How you will be taking the nursery, the truck or any type of machine you take it to site. You shouldn't overload the nursery, because when you overload the nursery, the moment you take it to farm, you lose plenty, which will never be successful in your farm.
Chairman of the nursery operators, Patrick Tibia, on his part, thanked MIDA for the introduction of the Code of Practice and asked that it will serve as a guide through their operations.
Se me kona me de FM me office ya ebi tumi aka me bribiara ama mahunu dia e wo se me ye ene dia ense nye na me nko ene madwuma yefuo enyina.
Among stakeholders present at the program were representatives from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and other key stakeholders in the cashew value chain. Anna Sabit, JoyNews, Techiman.
Some dog lovers and breeders are mobilizing 5,000 doses of vaccine to provide free vaccination for cats and dogs in rabies-infected areas of the Ashanti region. At least 8 people have so far died from rabies infections in just the first half of the year. Outbreaks have also been reported in Bosomtri, Kwabri East and Asante Akim South, amongst other places. The pet breeders say they are concerned about the state's inaction over the immunization of the animals. On Himinteria of our health desk has more in the following report.
Authorities are worried over the increasing number of rabies-related deaths among dog owners in the Ashanti region. Regional Health Director Dr. Emmanuel Kojo-Tinkran, who is also worried about the high fatality rate of victims of rabies attack, has recommended a mass vaccination exercise.
We've written to the Veterinary Services Division so that at least all the dogs will be vaccinated. Other than that, the health system will see some of these cases very late. Rabies is said that when you get it, the fatality is very high. So you don't have to wait till maybe you are bitten by a dog to be too late.
But the veterinary service says it lacks funding for mass vaccination. Majority of the pet owners cannot also afford the cost of vaccination. Regional Veterinary Officer Dr. Mabel Abudu encourages pet owners to take their pets to district veterinary offices to be vaccinated, but at a fee.
Mass rabies vaccination. Some years back, we used to do that. When I came into the system, it was done year after year. Not only rabies vaccination, but there were other anthrax vaccinations and things like that being carried out by Veterinary Services Directorate. But along the line, things have really gone down. It is not our fault anyway, but it has to also do with funds.
In the midst of this hopelessness for some pet lovers, a group of dog breeders are raising 5,000 vaccines. They include Adamfopa Pet Care, Happy Home, Mainstream Animal Hospital, Shizu Club of Ghana, and the Kennel Club. Emmanuel Asari, Chief Associate at Adamfopa Pet Care in Tema Community 2, is leader of the campaign.
We think that dog life matter and animal lives matter, and we believe that in 2022, human beings and pets should not lose their lives because of a lack of a vaccine. Our goal is to try and mobilize about 5,000 vaccines so that we can give it to rural Ghana.
Mr. Asari, who doubles as president of the Shizu Club of Ghana, wants all dog lovers to come on board the vaccination exercise.
This is a collaborative effort and we can't do it on our own. So we are actually using this platform to even extend an olive hand of invitation to other breeders, other pet owners to come on board, so that we can help these dogs to get vaccinated and kick rabies out of Ghana.
From Kumasi, for JoyNews, I'm Interia reporting.
Thanks for your company. For more news, log on to www.myjoyonline.com. My name is Pakwisi Shandoff. The show continues with Benjamin Akakpo and Papito CPD.
Well, here we are. Thanks for staying with us, and it's time now for the news review. We'll try to get in touch with Suleiman Abraham. Some technical challenges this morning, especially as, let's just say, he is not necessarily within our jurisdiction, but we'll try to do what we can to get him on board. In the meantime, let's get into the stack of papers we have today: the Daily Graphic, Ghanaian Times Daily Guide, Republic Press, and more. So we get into that, of course. A major issue on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. In fact, the banner headline, boosting infrastructural development, $1 billion prosperity fund launched. Yeah, another one. All right, so we'll get into the details of that. There's also $300 million saved on energy program, that story on page 3. Then centralized application process for varsity applications, that story on page 16. You might want to stay for that, especially if you're contemplating putting in an application to any of our major universities, especially the public ones. There are other stories, but let's get into that first one on page 3. And it says, Ghana and South Africa have launched an African Prosperity Fund, a joint initiative by the two countries to deploy $1 billion to fund projects for economic inclusion and financial participation. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo announced the launch at the Global Citizen Festival in Accra last Saturday night. The fund will focus on projects including infrastructural development, financial access for the participation of women and the youth, education, healthcare, technology, and sustainability for the benefit of Africa's 1.3 billion people. So 1 billion for 1.3 billion. Now, organized by the international advocacy organization Global Citizen, the festival, which took the form of a concert, sought to leverage opportunities to get policy and financial commitments from the governments, corporate and philanthropic leaders. And it took place simultaneously at the Black Star Square in Accra and on the Great Lawn in Central Park in New York City. That's the USA. The Accra event was not a normal event. It was filled with jeers, cheers, thrills, excitement, and other acts that echoed across the Black Star Square. Just to wrap on Mr. President and some of what he said, he urged the youth to support the governments to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, aka the SDGs. He said the role of the youth in championing, advocating, and attaining the goals could not be underestimated. But when the story talks about jeers, cheers, thrills, and excitement, if you watched any, I didn't watch the full thing, I didn't follow the full thing, I was not there physically, but I saw awesome performances and Stoneboy clad in all white, doing the drill and jumping all over the place like nobody's business. I mean, that was a thrill. And when he ended with putu, putu, that was something. But I also found something rather interesting. A cross-section, a section of those there were booing. And apparently this was when, Mr. President was delivering his about 6-minute speech. It got to the point where some were going away. I felt, I look at that from two angles. One, disrespectful, because at least, there are some courtesies that must be accorded our leaders, even if we want to bash them for the things we feel. That is one. So a bit disrespectful in there. But then if you go down memory lane and you realize that, okay, once you put yourself in that spot, people, once they're not attacking you physically and all of that, often get away with quite a lot. What did not happen to President J.J. Rawlings, may his soul rest in peace, what did not happen to Kufuor? I mean, the comments about him, Atta Mills, Mahama, and now I guess maybe it's his turn. But on the other hand, could you take it away from the young people there? I actually went through the threads on Twitter, and you know how savage Twitter is, and comments about Mr. President and the economy and how he seems to be living in this bubble, almost detached from the reality. I found that rather interesting. I don't know what you think. You can shoot us a message with the hashtag AM Show on the live stream on Facebook. Let us know what you thought about that. I saw one post where this gentleman actually posted about how, disappointed he was in the president and all of that. And then a lady there was telling him you should be disappointed in yourself. You're a disappointment. So varying opinions about that. But I feel it cast a bit of a slur on the entire Global Citizen Festival. Anyway, other stories to take a quick look at. Let's go back to page 3. $300 million saved on energy program. I'll bring you details of that story. And so the government saved $300 million last year as credit accruing to energy sector utilities. The credit accrued from arrangements the government put in place to share tariff revenues among players in the electricity value chain weekly to improve liquidity in the sector as part of the Energy Sector Recovery Program. That's the ESRP. The Natural Gas Clearinghouse, NGC, established under the ESRP, ensures a weekly sharing of tariff revenues among players in the electricity value chain, including natural gas suppliers, transmitters, off-takers, and distributors made up of public and private sector players. In 2021 alone, we reconciled, and this is a quote, over $300 million, which will go back to the government as credit. The lead accountant of the NGC Leonard Akufo-Kwapong said at a workshop on energy sector efficiency in Adan last Friday. Okie doke. Now from there, let's check out some international stories and then segue back into the local and wrap from there. So, Ethiopian Airlines Consortium wins bid for new Nigeria airline. I was reading some information about them and how they have a stake in multiple African airlines. And I'm wondering, if you go back to the Black Star of Africa and when we established our first national carrier and how we were one of the first to do that, we could have been here, but Ethiopian Airlines is just soaring, going higher and higher, and getting stakes in all of these airlines across Africa, and we don't even have an airline to boast of, so to speak. But anyway, a consortium led by Ethiopian Airlines is the preferred bidder for shares in new Nigerian airline, Nigeria Air, the country's aviation minister said last Friday. The airline was one of the President Muhammadu Buhari's 2015 election campaign promises. Ethiopian Airlines will own a 49% stake in the new airline, while the Nigerian Sovereign Fund will take 46% and the Nigerian federal government the remaining 5%. The aviation minister, Hadi Sirika, told reporters that Buhari's cabinet was expected to sign off on the shareholding plan in the next few weeks. Nigeria Air would have an initial capital of $300 million and plans to have 30 aircraft within 4 years, he said. And that has been, the tale of the tape. Ethiopia Airlines sometimes getting just a little over 50%, but mostly 49% shares. And you know what that means. Kudos to them. I mean, if you don't take advantage of that space, and they are one of the foremost carriers in Africa. So yes, we salute them. And I just wish it were our carrier if we had that level. Africa's most populous country's previous national carrier, Nigeria Airways, was founded in 1958 and wholly owned by the government. It ceased to operate in 2003. Let's talk about ECOWAS sanctioning Guinea, condemning Mali over Ivorian troops. So, the Economic Community of West African States has announced more sanctions against Guinea's military government after it failed to establish a new schedule for the transition to democracy. In an extraordinary summit held last Thursday on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, leaders from West Africa's main political and economic bloc agreed to freeze the military government members' financial assets and bar them from traveling to other countries in the region. And so that is the tale of the tape when it comes to Guinea and Mali and Ivorian troops. Nominations open for 5th Ghana Business Awards, story on page 6. Let's get a few more stories and call it a wrap for the Daily Graphic newspaper. Tamale Airport Phase 2 project completed, and there's also 23,495 people test positive for HIV in 6 months. Charlie, where would they go? Hey, you know what the stats have been in the course of the year, and it's becoming a dire situation when you look at the numbers that we keep seeing. People have been talking about the fact that, look, when it comes to HIV, it appears we've been focusing on monkeypox here, COVID-19 there, and everything else. The likes of tuberculosis and HIV have been put on the back burner, and it appears we're feeling the heat now. But let me get into that story. A total of 23,495 people tested positive for HIV in the first half of this year, according to statistics from the National STIs and HIV/AIDS Control Program. As a result, a network of institutions leading the HIV and AIDS response in the country has begun national stakeholder engagements as part of a process to review interventions for better outcomes. The Ghana HIV and AIDS Network, that is GHANET, a non-profit organization leading HIV interventions in the country, said the move had become necessary because despite efforts at reducing new infections and ending AIDS, the desired impact seemed far from being achieved. I recall reading a story, I think it was in the Daily Graphic or some other paper, earlier this year, where there was talk about, what would you call it, the HIV numbers and the fact that a lot of people who had it didn't even know they had contracted the virus. And that is even more scary. We're looking at many thousands. So I don't know. I always go back to the policy we had before, and there was all talk about the ABCs. Abstinence, if you remember that advert, it goes way back. Abstinence, being faithful. So be faithful, and then condom use. I have my own, on the religious side, I have my own take on all of that. But look, if it's going to save your life, if it's going to protect you, why not? If you miss the A, the B, don't miss the C. But it appears now there are instances where you even engage young people and they say, oh, for us, we don't like protection and all of that. I don't know whether it's a gap in education or it's something to do with the current youth, but this right here tells us things are going awry. Nothing is going as we would want it, and that's a big problem. Anyway, to wrap the conversation, retrieve illegal weapons in the country, Peace Council tells government. But let's do some sports. And of course, you would note by now, you would have noticed that it was a stalemate between Kumasi Asante Kotoko, Klobia Kumasi Asante Kotoko, my team, of course, and the Phobian boys, the multicolored boys, Accra Hearts of Oak. It was 1-1. Of course, we're all focusing on Ghana versus Brazil. You could share your take with us on that as well. Some feel it was a good outcome, though we didn't win. Others feel it was disastrous. What's your take? But right now, topping the league log, we have Great Olympics, Oligbogbo, Olin Konson, with 7 points after having played 3 matches. Let's see where Kumasi Asante Kotoko is. In 14th spot, last year's winners, or should I say this year's winners, last year into this year, with only 1 point. And there's also, where's Hearts of Oak? Where's Hearts of Oak? Where's Hearts of Oak? How come I can't find the Hearts of Oak boys? Oh, okay, there. They are just a notch ahead in 13th place. But of course, these are just the starters of the season. We'll see what happens as the season progresses. I wish the Krobia Kumasi Asante Kotoko boys the very best. Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Ghana, 3 other countries to benefit from $450 million World Bank credit facility for pro-poor policies. Pictured there, Mr. Daniel Botry. There's also protecting country against terrorist attacks. 48 foreigners nabbed in Ejiso. I'll bring you some details of that. Go for HIV test. NACP urges public as infections increase across the country. And court remands 3 KNUST students allegedly involved in violent clashes on campus. And so those are details of some of the stories there. Let's check out the first one. Let's go to page 15. In fact, pages 15 and 16. Let's get to page 15 first. So here we go. Protecting country against terrorist attacks. 48 foreigners nabbed in Ejiso. What are the details of the story? The Ejiso Divisional Police Command is investigating 48 foreigners arrested in 2 separate operations in connection with alleged terrorism and other fraudulent acts. Of the number, 21 of the suspects were arrested last Thursday, while 27 were also arrested on Saturday evening. The arrest followed about 3 months of monitoring by the community members in the area who noticed the abnormal behavior of the suspects. They are said to be from Niger, Nigeria, Kenya, and Mali. A police source at the Ejiso Divisional Police Command who confirmed the operation said the arrest was made at Echim, a community in Ejiso municipality, based on a tip-off. According to the source, the investigation was focused on whether they had links to any terrorist group in some of the neighboring countries. And so, interesting details there. Of course, I'm happy when these swoops are conducted, even if these people are proved not guilty or turn out not to be complicit in any nefarious activity. But the good thing is we have these tip-offs. Where the problem lies is when some people say that they don't trust the police enough to tip them off, because there's also that cycle, vicious cycle sometimes of I don't know whether to say the police, but establishment, letting the accused know that, oh, it was Asemesi, this person, John Doe or Kwame or Ama, who pointed at you, and then it becomes a full-scale escalation. We saw that come up recently in Wa on the back of those killings. So hopefully, we can continue with this. Again, it's based on a tip-off that we nabbed Aisha Huang. It wasn't through any intel. It was based on a tip-off. So I think we need to reinforce those structures, most definitely. On the next page, on page 16, Ghana, 3 other countries to benefit from $450 million World Bank credit facility for pro-poor policies. And the Minister for Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, Mr. Daniel Boche, has said the implementation of the Gulf of Guinea Northern Region's social cohesion, that is SOCO project, will complement Ghana's pro-poor policies. According to him, it would reduce inequality, foster economic growth, and create the needed jobs to empower the youth in the beneficiary districts and municipalities. He said some interventions, especially the medium-term National Development Policy Framework and the Ghana at 100 vision rolled out by the government, had been contributing significantly to the progress of the country, and the implementation of the SOCO project was going to add value to it. And that is what he says. Kotokoha's share points on the back page, and Mensa's strike for Uli sinks King Faisal. Alaji Gu says King Faisal. More stories from more papers next. Let's go to the Daily Guide newspaper. And 3 KNUST students caged for rioting. It's becoming something, isn't it? Let's get details of the story. So 3 suspects have been remanded into police custody in connection with the recent riots at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. The trio, including Emmanuel Apia Amwa, Kwabena Kwating Amaniampong, and Eugene Nwamesi, are expected to reappear before the same court on October 4, 2022. The suspects have been charged for rioting and causing unlawful damage. This follows recent mayhem at the KNUST when Katanga Hall and Unity Hall students clashed on campus. Now, during the clashes, the rampaging students caused destruction to property, including CCTV cameras. It goes on and on. We know about that situation, but guess what? It's getting hotter and hotter, and these 3 are to reappear. There's also Global Citizen Festival shakes Accra. The story is on page 8. I was talking about how apparently some young people there were not so enthused when our president had to take the podium and address them for some 6 minutes. They basically wanted him out of the place. You can give your take on it, disrespectful, otherwise people merely expressing their opinion. But I think it took away something from the event. St. Andrew's group of schools at Tops and Kojobonsu hits ground running. All those stories there. IMF team arrives today, and that's an expectation. Story on page 9. Let's get into that, and it's a wrap. So Stefan Rude, International Monetary Fund mission chief for Ghana, is billed to arrive in Ghana today with a team to continue discussions with government on policies and reforms that the IMF can assist Ghana with. Mr. Rude and his team are also expected to engage with other stakeholders, including the Bank of Ghana, Parliament, business associations, and civil society groups. The meetings with government and other stakeholders will end on October 7th, 2022. Interestingly, this is coming after the recent downgrade of Ghana's credit risk status from CCC to CC by Fitch, an international rating agency. According to Fitch, the downgrade depicts the increased likelihood that Ghana will pursue debt restructuring given the rising financing stress, with surging interest costs on domestic debt and a prolonged lack of access to Eurobond markets. We'll be bringing you details of that story as we get into our big stories for the day. On the back page, it's all sports, and Jan salutes Salisu. And Asamoah Gyan was impressed with Southampton defender Mohamed Salisu in his debut game for the Black Stars. Of course, Asamoah Gyan himself having played for Southampton at a point in his career. That stint of his in the English Premiership. A few more stories and it's a wrap. Republic Press this morning. NPP Northern bigwig throws weight behind Allen, calls him the unifier. This story reminds me of what I read only yesterday about Ken Ejapon, the Asin Central Member of Parliament, who says there's nothing special about Mahamudu Bawumia, the Vice President, or Alan Chemating, the Trades Minister. Nothing special about them. I guess he feels special because, like we know, he is lacing his boots to take on the flag bearership slot. But will he prove special? That's the question. Mankesim killer chief student not dead. That's according to the police. Now that's an interesting one. A different twist to the story. Ghana earns $3.95 billion from crude oil export. Gunshots at Bibiani, BEC students shot. And Fitch downgrades Ghana. Bagbin dumps GBA. And Republic Press conveniently took out the A from Bagbin's Bagbin and left it with BGBIN. I guess they must have been in a hurry. But Bagbin dumps GBA, and of course he's chosen to oust himself from the group, citing some of the things happening in the judiciary, which would mean that he's thinking along the same lines as former President John Dramani Mahama. And some have said that he can afford to do that because where he's got to, I mean, he basically doesn't benefit any from being called a lawyer, so to speak, or whatever it is. But you can have your own take on that. But heavily armed military men have stormed Bibiani Old Town and fired gunshots, hitting 4 men and 2 teenagers who are said to be BEC students. The soldiers, according to reports, were on a hunt for some galamseyers who had gone to mine on some old pit belonging to Menson Gold Bibiani Limited. Among the 4 shot were one Kwejo Ejapong, aka Bako. He sustained 4 shots. Ouch. 4. Another Beu was also shot, as well as 31-year-old Fuseini Issa. The 2 teenagers who were hit by the stray bullets were 17-year-old Eric Entry, who is a JHS pupil preparing for his BEC, and 16-year-old Eric Entry, who also received shots in his rib and hand. The 2 teenagers are both at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital receiving treatment. So, dealing with galamseyers, yes, but stray bullets hitting students preparing for the BEC. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what agony, what trauma they would be going through now. And how are they even going to sit their examination with this? Sad situation. But let's take a quick look at that story on page 8. I'm curious about the details. I'm sure you are too. So let's get right into it. Page 8, where are you? There you are. So, Mankasim killer chief student not dead. The report circulating in the media that the chief arrested in connection with the murder of a prospective student nurse at Mankasim has died is false. Okay. The chief and his accomplice, who were remanded into police custody by the court to reappear on October 4, 2022, are alive and in custody. I saw the story making the trends on social media. For a moment, I was thinking it was something else, but those are the details there. So the chief is very much alive. Let's wrap the conversation with a few more stories. There's GCB or CBG unveils new SME center. Ghana is the best place for mining investment in Africa, according to President Akufo-Addo. And Ghana, USA to team up to promote tourism. Joint US-Ghana Tourism Fora proposed. That's according to Dr. Awal. All right, so that is the big one there. There's also Ghanaian publisher, Ghana best for mining investment in Africa, according to Mr. President. Stranded Delta passengers left on their own. And this would be the second time after the incident to do with, was it St. George? Delta Airlines. I'll get quickly into that story. Macdan makes first salt export to Spain and Cameroon. Of course, that entire situation is still mired in a lot of controversy. NPP touts poverty reduction gains. Story on page 3. But let's look at that story on page 2. I want to find out what's happening to Delta Airlines again in this instance. So, a Delta airline flight to Accra was cancelled on Friday following what the company claimed was owing to bad weather. Report they received from air traffic control from the Kotoka International Airport. Thursday's flight was also cancelled on the same grounds. Stranded passengers were disappointed with the airline for not giving them notification after traveling from different states in the U.S., only to be told about the cancellation at the JFK airport. A supervisor of Delta Airlines, who gave his name as Francis, speaking to the stranded passengers, said the airline could not be blamed for the cancellation and that they were not going to provide accommodation. I think a similar incident happened with some Ghanaians, together with, was it the Member of Parliament for Dingo Prampram, Sam George, or it could have been Okujato Blackwa. I think it was Sam George. And there were complaints. So I am wondering, that was an incident. 2 more within the space of what, a week or 2? What's happening? What's happening? The Custodian is my final newspaper. Choose Ghana for mining investment. NPA alerts drivers at fuel stations. And we have business opportunities in Northern Region. And that's according to the Northern Regional Minister, Alhaji Shani A. Shaibu, Northern Regional Minister. Social Cohesion and Development, $150 million project for 48 districts starts. That story on page 3. Let me just wrap with the NPA's alert, and we shall say goodbye and get into sports. So motorists have been urged to continuously prompt fuel attendants on the type of fuel they are buying and also pay attention to the color codes to be sure of being dispensed with the right products into their fuel tanks. Eunice Budu Nyako, head of Consumer Services Department of the NPA, gave the advice in WA while engaging commercial drivers and traders within the WA municipality. She pointed out that the red coats on fuel nozzles means it's super or petrol. The black means it's diesel, while the green stands for differentiated products or high octane. So that is RON 95 and the V powers and others. So you must be on the lookout. There are times I've got to the fuel station and I've been asked, is it diesel or petrol? Sometimes, I mean, if you're not careful, you know what that could do. You might have to change your entire engine and so many complications if it's a petrol engine and diesel is put in there. And, you know, you really can't trust when it comes to insurance and all of these things. So just be sure they are filling in with the right color code, knowing that it's petrol that is going in if it's a petrol consuming vehicle. Of course, if you're going for the high octane types, the RON 95s, the V powers and the rest, also know the color code. So just quickly, if it's super or petrol, then it is red. If it's black, then it means it's diesel. And if it's green, then you're going for the high octane versions. On that note, Ghana 4, it's a wrap here for the news review. Thank you so much for your company. If you've not woken up yet, oh yeah, wake up and let's do this. Sports up next on the show. Do stay.
Honest even in a super clash. One of the greats to have ever graced the tennis course calls it quit. And also, what is the mood of Otto Addo after Ghana was dropped by Brazil in a preparatory World Cup friendly? We've got this and many more here on the AM Sports with me, Muftau Nabila Abdaba. First, let's go to Kumasi, where Kumasi Asante Kotoko hosted the first leg of the super clash in the 2022-23 Ghana Premier League season against Accra House of Oak. It was the Porcupines who took a lead courtesy of Yusuf Mubarak before Caleb Amankwa grabbed the equalizer with 2 minutes to end proceedings as the game ended 1-1.
Okay. Mukwele again does well just to get up. Yeah, Kosa is stripping him. We keep an eye on Kosa's left leg. He catches the heel of Mukwele. I think that's the referee who spotted it. It's a free kick in a decent area if they can whip a decent ball into the box. Japan is into danger, and the big man is there. The defender is there. It says the big defender Mubarak.
That happened on Friday. Brazil defeated the Black Stars 3-0 as the senior national team played their first friendly ahead of the FIFA World Cup to stage in Qatar. Head coach of the team, Otto Addo, says he's unhappy with the performance of his team, especially in the first half. An opportunity for the Black Stars to redeem themselves tomorrow when they come up against Nicaragua in their second friendly for this month. The team arrived in Spain last night and will hold their first training session this morning before subsequently training in the evening, and then which is going to be the last training session before the friendly match that will be happening on Tuesday. Let's hear from a former player of the Black Stars, now a coach, Laia Kingston, who says the approach of Ghana towards that friendly match against Brazil was wrong.
For me, I think Ghana-Brazil game is a big game. Brazil is a country that a lot of players in the world wanted to face. We all say that before they will put you up to the top players list, you have to play against the best. So for me, that particular game is very important for the Black Stars players and the entire team. In the game, for me, I think the approach to the game wasn't right. I think they gave too much respect. Because I believe that we have a lot of quality. I believe that the same way we have so much respect for the Brazilian team, I believe we have the same respect to us as well. So for me, it's the approach I don't think we approach the game well. We give them too much respect. We don't see that affect us in the first half. We were sitting, waiting for them, and yet when they get to a half, there is no bite. We are not trying to put pressure on them and frustrate. So I think a game of 2 halves. Otto got it right in the second half. That shows the quality of the coach he is, because for me, I believe not every plan that to take to the game will work, but find solution to solve the problems that you are encountering in said game, which I believe Otto got it right. We all saw that the second half they came out very well, and then they held the Brazilians well.
A former vice president of the Ghana Football Association, Fred Papo, says the decision of the football governing body to play friendly matches will help the senior national team have the best of preparations towards the FIFA World Cup. Fred Papo, who was management committee chairman of the Black Stars between 2006 and 2011, says that these friendly matches is the best option the GFA has got following the decision of FIFA to move the FIFA World Cup to November, December for this year's edition. And that means that countries will not have the opportunity of camping ahead of the tournament.
I think it's going to be an interesting World Cup. I believe and I hope we'll get our acts right. 1, with the call-ups. 2, with the preparations. So far, I've seen the friendly matches lined up perfect. It couldn't have been any better. We have a friendly match opponent with a style or expected style similar to each and every single one. Nicaragua for Uruguay, Switzerland for Portugal, and then
we did Japan earlier too.
Yeah, we did Japan earlier. So I think it's quite okay with the preparations. And then my only hope and prayer is that we should have serenity in camp. We need serenity in camp. It should be devoid of all these acrimonious, this crisis here and there, shouting for bonuses or whatever it is. We must try and settle all as much as possible. And then even in the camp itself, as much as possible, the team should be insulated from the physical presence and visitations of many other people. You know, they may wish well, they will wish their team well, but I think it's worth leaving the boys to be in their own space, at least for that period of time. I'm sure if we do that with our usual God on our side, we'll get a good run-up.
MultiChoice and Betkin have announced a partnership that will ensure that Ghanaian fans have an opportunity of predicting and winning special prizes. My colleague, Elon Benai Defiamakpo, has got the rest of the story.
Managing Director of MultiChoice, Alex Octree, speaking to the launching of Super Picks Predict and Win promo, says Super Picks is a free-to-play platform where you can game and win real money. He says you will play a game and pay no money, but gain 100,000 Ghana cedis as a winner.
We're introducing what we call a life-changing game for soccer fans across the country. So you can play this game at zero cost to you, zero cost, but you stand a chance of winning a cool 100,000 Ghana cedis every weekend. 100,000. What would you do with 100,000 Ghana cedis?
He explained to Joy Sports why Super Picks Predict and Win promo is unique compared to other betting products.
Actually, we want to reward and get our fans who have watched our games, Super Sports, everything, also more into what we do. And so we want to reward our fans. So in doing that, I mean, we not being traditionally a betting or a gaming platform, we partnered with Betkin to do that for us. But essentially, it's free, and we want to reward our viewers, those who have watched Super Sports, you know, all this while. And I mean, you don't even need to be a DSTV customer. It's a reward for everybody.
Head of projects for Super Picks, Ryan Moore, also spoke on the benefits
of predicting and standing a chance to win. So it's here to stay as the main way. It's different, and we really try and bring in fun. So we have a whole entertainment magazine, most value played show that's now extending into Ghana as well. hosted on SuperSport every weekend, talking about who's the best player, who got injured, who underperformed, why Liverpool's not doing so well, all these things. So it's a holistic solution that will continue to grow. The response in multiple other markets is doing really well. People like to win, and when those stories come out every week, and people start to trust that you can win, you don't have to pay, and you get paid out, the story starts to get traction. And so we're seeing that in Nigeria and South Africa, now in Kenya and Ethiopia, and in Ghana. So in Ghana we'll start to see that from this weekend. That's the story.
This is how we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
It's another beautiful opportunity, and this is Drive Safe. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I am back at Top Tech Transport and Logistics, and this is where you really need to come if you want to know how to drive properly and do the right thing on the road and save your life as well as that of other motorists. Thank you for joining us. Now today we're going to be talking about night driving, yes, but with a different dynamic. It is raining. Extreme weather conditions while you're driving at night. Driving at night already is problematic. Throw in other conditions and it becomes chaotic if you are not careful. How do you manage the situation? Before I get to Mr. Gabra though, let's take a quick look at this signal. So you think you know, but do you know? So you've seen that signal and you've seen the different answers. Which answer do you think it is? Curious, huh? So we'll find out at the end of this segment. But let me say hello to Mr. Cecil Gabra. Thank you once more for joining us.
Many thanks. Many thanks.
Great. Now, night driving is the conversation we just had. And we're now throwing in, let's say, a spanner in the wheel. You're driving at night, you're already struggling like those of us with 4 eyes. And there are extreme weather conditions. Let's say it is raining heavily. What changes? What should you do? How should you react as you drive?
Thank you so much. But then, first of all, do you have very good wipers? That is what you have to ask yourself. Wipers in Africa can only be used for a period of 3 months because of the scorching sun. Rubber is not permanent. Rubber doesn't last. And therefore you cannot use rubber in this hot scorching sun for more than 3 months. So first of all, you need to get a good wiper, and that is why you should always have a set of wiper blades in your vehicle. Now, as soon as you start putting on your...
So basically, just as you have spare tires, you should have spare
wiper blades. Yes. Now, when you put on your wiper blades and you hear that squeaking sound,
it means it's come to the end of its lifespan.
That gives you that warning that very soon it's going to go away from, the system that holds the blade.
Right.
Yes. So that's number one. You need to change your wiper blades. That when you switch on your wiper, you will not hear any sound from your windscreen.
So just to get it clear, once you start hearing that sound, it means you need to replace
time for replacement.
Right.
Right. So that's the warning. Right. So when you set off, you should have what we call the wiper fluid. I think I mentioned it the other time. The wiper fluid must be fully topped up. Okay. And that thing is not soap. Don't use Omo or any hard soap.
So I go to my filling station and there's a specific watery liquid soap kind of thing.
Precisely.
I actually buy it. It's specific for and that's what I use.
Yes.
Blue colored liquid.
Yes, that is it. That is the wiper. You know, fluid. A lot of people don't know, and that is why they try to mix up their own chemicals, because some of it also will destroy the rubber. Okay, especially if it's gotten any petroleum products in them. Right. Your wiper blades will go even before the 3 months. So change your wiper blades. Let it be new always. Now, as you set off and then you see that it's raining, you need to ask yourself so many questions. Okay, if you have your phone, you stop, you look at the weather conditions, what your phone says, what Uncle Google will tell you is fairly the truth. Right. If you are traveling and then it's raining heavily, what you need to do is look for somewhere to stop your vehicle, park your vehicle, not under a tree anyway. A plain place is okay. You don't drive in heavy rain. If it's drizzling,
how heavy is heavy?
Well, heavy means that your wiper number 2, that's how I call it, that's the fast. Okay, and it's cleaning so fast, but still you can't see. Yeah, that's
so it's at the highest point, and you're still struggling.
Precisely. And then also there is a switch in the car that people don't know. Now that switch produces a lot of heat for the windscreen. Okay. Now you need to put that. It's called a defroster. You put it on. Because obviously you will be using your air conditioner, or you will be using, you'll be driving whilst your glasses are up.
So is it that button that I think it shows, when you want to heat up? Is that the button you're referring to?
It's a defroster.
Right.
And then you have it both at the front and then the back glasses. Okay, so you need to put it on. So that will give you that clearance. So whilst you're driving and then you notice that, hey, I cannot drive again, you look for somewhere and park. Don't force yourself to drive in that rainy condition. Now, before it gets to that point, road crashes occur when it's even drizzling daytime. Okay, because this is a situation where, especially we are driving on a bitumen road. Okay, when it drizzles on it, the whole road becomes very oily. Your brakes wouldn't be able to work well. You have a situation where you go on your brakes and then you find your vehicle moving towards a direction. Even with all the systems that you have, may not be able to work well.
Your car might even skid.
It will skid off, right? So night driving, when you are driving in that situation, is very, very difficult and then very tiring, and therefore you must not attempt. Park your vehicle, let the rains calm down, and when you set off, look for floods. In this situation, look out for the vehicle coming in front of you. Okay, if there are no vehicles, put on your most powerful lights, which is the high lights, and drive slowly, because you may be entering a flood which you may not know, especially when you are traveling and you don't know the condition of that road.
Because you can't see too far ahead because of the weather conditions.
Yes, drive gently, don't be in a hurry, and this time, roll your glasses also down so you get the ambience of if there's any water passing. It's really important.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Very interesting. Because water moving at a speed will make that noise even before you get there.
Right.
And it kills a lot of people, because those driving the 4x4s are so funny. Not every 4x4 is a 4x4. I always say it. We have vehicles like RAV4, Toyota RAV4, that looks like a 4x4, but it is not a 4x4. However, if you are using the most powerful 4x4, you cannot drive in such situation. Okay, and then I think at another time we'll talk about how to drive a 4x4 using all your auxiliary gears.
Okay. Right before we wrap on driving at night under extreme weather conditions, I also want to know, when it's raining, you're driving at night, what should you know when it comes to the application of brakes? Very briefly on that.
Well, thank you so much. You have to look out for the vehicle in front of you. When it moves to the left, move towards the left. If it touches his brake, touch your brake. That is it.
The person in front of you should be your guide.
Yes, the person in front of you must always be your guide, because he will not go on his brake if there's no emergency. If he taps on your brake, on his brake, tap on your brake and wait for the next thing that you do. It's so interesting. Don't think that the person in front of you is not driving well. He is a good driver and he is guiding you. So if you're at the fourth car, you see all the cars in front of you doing the same thing, tapping on brakes, moving to the left, moving to the right, and sometimes abrupt stop. Speed limit must not exceed 60 kilometers per hour at night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabra, for walking us through this. Today, we've taken a look at driving at night under extreme or certain weather conditions, specifically rainy conditions. 60 kilometers per hour. Look out for the vehicles ahead of you in terms of how they are braking and all of that. Just follow suit. Don't be in too much of a hurry to get to your destination. Better get to your destination alive than not get there and be dead. That's how we wrap up on a Drive Safe for another segment. Like I always say, drive safe and stay alive. But so you think you know. Here's the answer to today's quiz question. And it's a wrap. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Thank you for watching. Well, here we are. It's a wet Monday morning. The clouds being a bit more generous as of now. But thank you so much for staying with us on the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. We're going to be talking about the big issues, the big stories, and we get into our economy. So there's a whole lot to talk about on the back of the Fitch downgrade when it comes to the risk of debt obligations not being met. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the IMF team that is in Ghana today, and we're going to be talking about other matters outstanding arising from these conversations and the way forward. Well, joining us for these conversations, we have Dr. Cashew Forsen. He joins the conversation. He'll be with us as we get into the salient matters. We also have Seiram Kawo, Senior Lecturer, UCC School of Business. A very good morning to you. I know we have Seiram Kawo. Good morning. Hello, Seiram.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure having you. I hope you're well.
I'm doing good.
We thank God for that. Being the first time I'm engaging you on this subject, I'd just like to find out from you, if I asked you to, in just a few sentences, tell me what you see when you look at Ghana's economy, what would you say?
The line is not very clear. Can you just repeat the question?
Great. Seiram, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Great. I'm just asking, when you take a look at our economy, what do you see currently?
The economy of Ghana, as we have it, is in financial distress. Very difficult for everyone. We have the exchange rate falling. We have the prices of goods and services going up on daily basis, where it becomes very difficult for the ordinary Ghanaian to plan how they can go to the market tomorrow to buy whatever they want to buy. Financing has become more expensive for us, and so it makes it very difficult for us to know our left from our right, because the cost of living in the country has become so astronomical that we are not able to determine what to do and what next action we can take.
And so that is the bird's eye view you have of our economy. When you look then at the various policies we've put in place, hiking the monetary policy rate, doing this, doing that, the receipt of $750 million from the Afrexim Bank facility, the cutting of salaries for some members of the executive, and all of that. When you look at them put together, have they had the sort of effect that maybe you would have expected in terms of shoring up our economy?
One of the objectives of Bank of Ghana is to control inflation that we have in the country. And controlling that inflation is such that they use the monetary policy. But over the years, that Bank of Ghana uses the monetary policy as a tool for control of inflation had not been working. When they do that, they are trying to mop up excess liquidity from the economy. But there is no excess liquidity we have in the economy. Bank of Ghana is supposed to make sure that the exchange rate is minimal over a period and then it's stabilized for some time now. But we do not see that. Yes, we have the 750 million loan that we have taken that is coming in, and that is supposed to go a long way to affect the exchange rate. But that has also not worked. The capping of the salary for the executives and the rest also is not something that is working because we do not know how much has been realized, whether the system is actually being implemented and the rest. So we need to know how this is working. Capping the salary is not enough when our expenditure is still going up. When we have our executives still spending all over the country on things that are not so much necessary. So we need to say that, yes, those measures that have been taken, they might on the surface look good, but we, the ordinary Ghanaians, we are not feeling it in our pockets. And once we are not feeling it in our pockets, it means that those systems are not working.
Is that a suggestion then? I mean, so you're saying that once we're not feeling it on the micro level, whatever may be done on the macro level, it means it's not working. Is that economics? Because sometimes the economists will tell you that, look, on the macro level, we are doing all of this. It will take time to trickle down to the micro level. Do you dispute that?
Yes, at the macro level, these policies are done. It will take time to go down to the micro level. But then the policies must have immediate effect. When the citizens are not responding to the policy, when the market is not responding to the policies that come up, it means that those policies are not good, are not working. And so there should be a different way of looking at how the policies must be implemented. Sometimes our leaders assume that when they sit and come out with a policy without education, the policies will work. Such as the implementation of the e-levy, when the citizens spoke that the 1.5% rate was high, there was no ears that was given to some of this saying by the citizens. Government went ahead to implement. What is the performance of this particular policy? So government should really look at how they come out with policies and how they try to implement the policy. The policies must be citizen-generated. They must be involved in the implementation and the ideation of these particular policies. If that is not done, and it comes from only the executives, and the citizens are tightening their belts, while the executives have their own losing, then it is not going to work.
Let's get into the conversation of debt restructuring, because you've already started talking about that, and it's imminent. We'll later talk about the IMF coming into the country, but we know that once you start thinking of debt restructuring, whether you're an individual, a company, or a much bigger company, a country, it means things are running amok. It means that you're trying to avoid the ultimate punitive measures that could come with bankruptcy. And that appears, to all intents and purposes, where we are headed. You put that side by side with the fact that Bloomberg has told us, even as of now, we are the country second only to El Salvador when it comes to those at the highest risk of debt default. Would you then say, Sairam, that we are on the verge of bankruptcy? Also looking at how we've eaten through our foreign reserves, are we on the verge of bankruptcy?
Okay. Yes, we are highly debt distressed when the international agencies continue to downgrade us. Now we are almost in a junk state where we are rated CC, and where I lecture in the University of Cape Coast, the CC is a failure. If you get a CC by the standard that we have in the University of Cape Coast, it means that that is a failure. But then saying that the country as a whole will be bankrupt, and that will be very difficult to accept. Yes, the debts have to be restructured, but then the restructuring of the Ghanaian debt that we have would have a lot more difficult implications for the country and those who have bought the bonds that we have. Let's remember that the bonds that we have bought, there are international bonds and there are local bonds. These bonds have the bond indenture that indicates the contract between the issuer of the bond and the one who had bought the bond. And the rates that were agreed on, the restructuring will have to have what we call the haircut, cutting off the interest rate, prolonging the period of payment, or trying to have an exchange, the debt for equity. But in equity in Ghana, what are we going to use for that particular exchange? There are different countries that have laws on debt restructuring. These laws that they have, how are we going to work together with it? But I believe that moral suasion can be a situation where the country knows the people who have invested in the bonds. They can sit them down, and these people would agree to prolong the period of payment and have the haircut done so that they will also have their debt recovered. No investor wants to lose his principal and the interest. And so when government goes to them and talks to them that, yes, we want to have a different negotiation, prolong your period, cut down the interest rate so that we will be able to save your money and the rest, that will go a long way to help us as a country.
And that's an interesting point you make, from which I would go to Dr. Patrick Smuggling of the University of Ghana. Doc, a very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, and good morning to viewers.
Great. So there is talk there. I don't know whether we just lost Sairam, but we'll get back to him on other matters. Dr. Smuggling, so I've been speaking to Sairam Kawo, and he makes mention of some principles we already know. When you're approaching debt restructuring, it means you're in dire straits. You want to avoid the ultimate, that is bankruptcy. You don't want to get there because it could be much more punitive, much more expensive. So you try to renegotiate your debt and see what can be done about it. When you look at where we've got to now, is this the right time to do this? Because we've heard from different entities, some saying don't restructure your debt, others saying do so. What do you think, Dr. Smuggling?
Okay. So I think, when we look at the extent of our indebtedness, and in particular, the problem with our, the current interest cost, it's just gotten out of hand. To the extent that,
What has got out of hand? What has got out of hand?
Our interest payment cost has gotten out of hand. At the moment, I think in the first quarter, we were doing like 50% of our revenue to service our loans, to pay interest. And that is a very difficult situation. And if you look at the fact that at the moment, interest costs are even rising further. The treasury bill rates are heading towards the 30s. So I think in that sense, you can clearly see why, at this point, we probably have to consider the restructuring. But the restructuring comes with a cost. I mean, I think at the moment we are discussing only restructuring the domestic component. But if there's a likelihood, there's a sense that it will extend to the foreign one, then we are really going to be there's going to be a real long-term consequences for us.
What will be the consequences? Because like you mentioned, there's local, our borrowing on the local market, the banks, and there's the external. What will be the ramifications if we approach the external in that same light?
So, then it will look like we have failed to honor our commitment as originally agreed when we went for those Eurobonds. And that, that will really affect our ability going forward to return to borrow, because it's going to put a reputational tag on us as a country. So, so that is like the next step before you have actually defaulted. And countries that have done this, they really struggle in terms of their credibility when it comes to going to the international market.
Are you suggesting, Dr. Isuming, that if we go down this road, of course, you make certain pledges when you go for these loans, and you're supposed to meet certain interest rates and meet certain times when it comes to making payments. But we also know, like government has told us, that we have the double whammy of COVID-19 and the Russo-Ukrainian war to deal with. Will these factors not mitigate whatever effect you're speaking about, reputational tagging, that could come along if we decided to meet our foreign investors, so to speak, or debtors, and tell them, look, at this point in time, we really cannot meet these obligations. You've just said that it's a dire situation. Will that not work?
So I'm not sure that, maybe for our domestic debt holders, that argument will sit much better with them. But, I think the international place out there is pretty ruthless. I mean, we have been complaining about, the president has been complaining about being downgraded when, the whole world is going through some trouble. But it just tells you, maybe there will be some sympathy, but we shouldn't count on so much sympathy. They will ultimately look at it as, as recently as 2020, we went to the market and borrowed. And I'm sure we went and made some promises. So maybe there might be some little sympathy, but let's not downplay the long-term effect it will have on our reputation.
I just want you to give me a quick response right before I get to Dr. Cashew Forcing, ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament. In fact, let me just say a good morning to him. Doc, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Just give me a few seconds, less than a minute, and I'll be right back to you. Dr. Isuming, so we're at CC level now. Sairam Kawa was telling us that is like a failure, a failed situation, at least if you're looking at the rankings from CCC to CC. But how consequential could be this to our, in terms of reputational damage? Now that we are at CC, and with what you're talking about, if we go down the road of debt restructuring on the foreign front, just how consequential could it be?
Well, I mean, when you read the rating action, it's been clear that so apart from the downgrade, they also look at what will change the rating. So the first thing they said is that if indeed we go ahead and do this restructuring, it will lead to further downgrade. So that one has been clear. But, I think at this stage, we have to think about what our options are. And why there doesn't seem to be many options, we could just, if you do go for restructuring, it really has to come with fundamental reforms that will ensure that going forward, even our dependence on the foreign borrowing itself will be limited. So as for consequence, there will be consequence. I mean, we will suffer a further downgrade. But the question is, if C is triple C was already appealed. So it's just that, in terms of managing our debt, we've failed already. It's just going to be, officially say these people have refused to honor their original agreement as it was. And, there will be additional consequences. But I mean, the question is, what else can we do? What options do we have? It doesn't seem to be like we have many options.
Do hold for me, Dr. Suming. Let me bring in Dr. Atoforsen. Doc, thank you for holding. When you look at our economy right now, looking at all the dynamics, the inflationary rate, the monetary policy rate, the likelihood of defaulting when it comes to meeting our debt obligations per Bloomberg, looking at all the different dynamics and now what we're seeing, are we on the very precipice, economically speaking?
Thank you very much. I think you've asked a very important question, but I'm not really interested in the difficulty we are in. My concern has to do with what we can do as a country to get out of it. Unfortunately, I am not seeing action on the part of the government because the issues you just mentioned requires us to do heavy liftings. It requires a lot of sacrifices, and obviously it's the government that has to lead the way. It requires a number of political buy-ins to get the society in particular to accept that we need to take the decision. Obviously, it will mean that government will have to admit a number of things they've done wrong in terms of policy choices. And that will also require government to show the way that they want to change these policy choices. My concern has to do with the fact that the government, for one, is not admitting that their policy choices that they have made that obviously has turned this country to the levels that we are in. I mean, for me, that is fundamentally the problem. Until government admit and stop blaming it on double whammy, which I think is a hoax, we will be in this for a very long time. Because to start with, we in fact need a minimum of 3 years to get out of it with policy change. Without policy change, we are in for another 5 years out of this mess. So I'm saying that what we need now is a national dialogue or some form of dialogue that will get everyone to understand where we are and the need for everyone to burden share. That I'm not saying it. And that is where I have my problem. I'm saying that this budget coming up is a do or die budget for the Republic of Ghana and the economy of our country. In fact, our livelihood. That is why I'm saying that the government must lead the way by signaling change in policy choices, by signaling confidence that after all we are changing the way we do our things. Unfortunately, I'm not saying it. A couple of things are wrong. The first thing is the debt. How did we get there? It's government policy of one problem, one loan. Government thinks that every single fiscal problem must be confronted with a debt. I disagree. And they go with commercial debt that are expensive. And the kind of expenditure choices that they use the money for is questionable. So these are things that we need to actually reverse. And how do we reverse it? To start with, I was saying that around this time, government should have come with a moratorium on new loans. But that attitude hasn't changed. Every day there is a loan coming to Parliament. In fact, Parliament is due to come back next month. I'm aware that there are a number of loan agreements that is sent to Parliament to get approval. And I've always been fighting this. For how long can I fight as a single person? For how long can we fight as a minority? Obviously, there's majority. They will carry the day, no matter the argument you make. So until they change that attitude, we are going nowhere. Debt restructuring is staring at us. It is something we cannot avoid. Touch wood, we cannot avoid. Whatever we do, Ghana will have to do some form of debt restructuring. The question is, what sort of debt restructuring are we choosing? Are we doing both domestic and external, or we are choosing external over domestic or domestic over external? It's a big question. And we need to, first of all, understand the restructuring envelope, the amount that we need, what we call the debt relief, the quantum of it. If Ghana needs, let's say, $2 billion worth of debt relief or $1 billion worth of debt relief, how are you going to restructure it? How are you going to position this amount? Are you going to put the burden only on domestic investors? And who are those investors that are going to get a haircut? I agree that some people will not have a haircut. But you see, debt restructuring is such a way that whether you have a hair that will be cut or not, it will affect the entire economy if you do domestic. And so we should be careful. Unfortunately, we are not hearing this from government. So, my brother, we are in for a long haul, very long haul, if we fail to That is my concern.
You make a very interesting point when you talk about, yes, we have to restructure our debt, but how we go about it is the issue. Looking at the complexities we're facing in terms of our economy, I mean, in debt restructuring, some would say, okay, restructure, move your debt from the private sector to the public sector. In this instance, it's either focusing on the domestic or the external. What do you feel we should be doing in our particular precarious situation?
Okay, first of all, as I said, we need to know the restructure envelope, the amount of debt relief Ghana requires, the situation that the country is in today, the true state of the Ghanaian economy. I think the situation we are in now has nothing to do with liquidity. The situation is that Ghana is currently insolvent. We are bankrupt. We cannot repay those debts.
Oh, we already bankrupt?
We are
become
bankrupt.
Insolvent?
Yes, we are. And I tell you why we are. Number one, if you add your debt service obligation and the wages and salaries obligation as a country, your tax revenue is not enough. In fact, you need about 20% more of your tax revenue to pay for your debt service obligation and your wages and salaries. That is a sign of a country that is bankrupt. When you use almost 90% of your tax revenue just to service your debt, it's a sign that the country is bankrupt. When at the point in time, even to buy petrol in a government vehicle, you have to borrow money to buy petrol. You have to borrow money to buy paper. You have to borrow money to buy pen. To run a government department, then it means the country is bankrupt. So the situation is not liquidity. The situation is that our country, our dear country, currently is bankrupt, and so we should live with it. Then coming to that, the government need to admit, level with the public, and get the public to buy in so that we can start policy choices that will correct all of that. I'm not saying that. So we need to know the total restructure envelope, how much debt relief that the country will require to bring our debt back to sustainable limit. If it is 1 cedi, then how do we share the 1 cedi? Who is taking the burden? Is it the external investors or local investors? That is a bigger question. But no one can give you a credible answer or a credible advice until we know exactly how much debt relief the country requires. So the ball is in the court of the government. They have to come clean. They have to level with us. They have to speak to stakeholders. They have to come clean. And let all of us be aware that this is what we need or require as a country. Then we can all input into that advice.
But
if they keep it in their chest, it's difficult for us to advise.
Right. So you're basically saying that government isn't being transparent enough. But at the same time, we know that even as far as an IMF program is concerned, which dovetails into the same matter, there was a request for $1.5 billion, which was increased, twofold to $3 billion. That should give you an idea of how much we require, right?
Unfortunately, that will not give you an idea. That is only coming in to show your reserves, because some BOP support, balance of payment support, and has nothing to do with your debt sustainability. You see, the fund is coming in a form of surveillance to ensure that you become fiscally disciplined and to correct the imbalances within the economy. That is the duty of the fund. In coming in, currently our currency is dropping like a fresh coconut, I always say. I'm not doing very well, not doing what we all require, and it has brought a lot of implications to the Ghanaian economy. Our reserves, from the numbers I have seen, is in a level that you will not be happy with and I'm not happy with. In fact, others are saying that our net international reserves is in the negative. The government has not come out to say this, but that is what is out there. It has become a gossip in the market, and people are gossiping about it. That is why the currency is going down and down. The fund coming in is to put a stop to where we are going as long as our reserves position is concerned. So that $3 billion is going to that side. It has nothing to do with the debt levels. The debt levels has become an albatross on the nation. As a result, government is not able to spend quality money on things that will drive economic growth. So what is going to happen going forward is that you see economic growth deteriorating coming down. So what we are saying is that the debt has now become a burden. In fact, it is now an overhang on the Ghanaian economy. We have gotten to a level that we are not in a position to service our debt. What do? You have to level with international investors. You see, debt restructuring for me is to, in the Ghanaian language, in my language, we say yen to min tia. That is what it is, yen to min tia. So it's a technical word that is deceiving people. But what it is that yen to min tia, so come on the table and let me tell you that I cannot pay. So you either accept a haircut or I default, means I can't pay you. Simple put. So we are in for difficult times, unfortunately. That is what it is. We are in for difficult times and we should brace ourselves for it. As for the D, it is bound to happen. Ghana is going to be downgraded further to a D. But the moment that you announce the debt restructuring officially, rating agencies will bring you to D. That is inevitable. And until you do debt restructuring, you will not get an IMF program. And if you do not get an IMF program to where we are today, if you don't get an IMF program, catastrophe. No one wants that to happen. We want the nation to avoid catastrophe. Our economy must actually survive. We need stability.
You're forecasting that we'll get to a D, which is like concomitant to debt restructuring. But correct me if I'm wrong, we've not been in those waters before in this Fourth Republic, have we?
Oh, never. You see, this is the first time Ghana is going to do commercial debt restructuring. We've never done it before. In fact, in Africa, Ghana is going to take the lead. This is because our debt structure is such that Ghana's debt levels, we owe more to commercial debt holders than bilateral and concessional debt holders. So the composition of our debt is about 80% of commercial debt holders as against 20% of others, which include concessional and bilateral. So if you really want to reduce your debt, the ones to go out after is the commercial ones. That is why government has decided to do this kind of debt restructuring. It is a haircut. It is to tell the people that that is where we are. We cannot repay our debt, and we have to deal with it.
When it comes to debt restructuring, there are two alternatives, whether it's an individual, a company, or a country. You could either focus on extending the period within which you have to make your payments, or you ask for lower interest rates, or in some cases, you would ask for both. Though you say you do not know the full facts and figures of where we stand economically speaking, when you look at the different dynamics in our economy, what should we be looking at when it comes to whether it's the local or the external? Should we be looking at both angles?
Okay, to start with, we have two types of debt, domestic and external. In the domestic, there can be institutions and then individuals. In the external, there can be institutions and individuals. So in the domestic, the institutions can be SNET. It can be pension funds. It can be you and I that the government owes. So if the government decides not to pay your money to you, it's going to affect your family. If the government decides not to pay SNET or pension fund, it's going to affect your pension. Even though it's not affecting you individually, personally, but in the end, it's going to affect your pension. If the government decides to punish the banks that are using depositors' money to buy the bonds, it is going to affect your money, your deposit in the bank. Eventually, that is what it means. Now, if they want to do external, the impact will hit institutions in somebody's country. The question is, which one will government choose? Well, remember that if you hit the external, you can't go back to them to loan money or to get loans from them in the very short while. In fact, it will take 3 years for you to get out there to get money back from them because you have defaulted anyway. You've told them that you can't pay your debt. And so going back to demand money again or to ask them to give you money is difficult. So what we need now is for the state to decide. But I'm saying it is difficult to decide at this stage until government tells us the amount of money that Ghana needs as debt relief. That is what we need to start the conversation. Because I know that currently debt restructuring is inevitable, unfortunately, because of government appetite for debt. They have borrowed to the hilt to a level that we cannot repay our debt. Yet they are finding it difficult to point to what they use the money for. They borrow, when you borrow money for consumption, this is what happens to your economy. Ghana has set a record that no other country in Africa has set, shamefully. But you see, we can't continue talking about the past. I am more thinking about the future. How do we secure the country? How do we secure our livelihood, which is the economy? We would demand from the government to come clean and give us the data that we require so that all of us can buy in to secure the country.
Are you going to table this formally in Parliament, this request?
Oh, yes. In the coming days, the minority will make that strong statement, demanding for full detail and to let the government be aware that, yes, they may be in charge of the governance today, but this country's destiny is not only with them. It is with all of us as citizens. All of us want to come on board to secure the future of this country for our children and grandchildren. And so we demand to be part of the process to secure the future of this country. That is what we are elected for. That is what we are elected for. And so it is, even though they have the responsibility to manage the economy, they have failed. And if you fail, we cannot wait for your term to end for you to drive us continuously into a ditch or a point of no return. We have to checkmate you to make sure you start the heavy liftings now before someone else takes over.
Pardon the interjection. Pardon the interjection. You say you want to checkmate them, but there have been times when you've wanted information which has not been forthcoming. In fact, you've had to threaten doing certain things, taking certain harsh measures until at some point maybe you've seen some responses from the Finance Ministry and others. What makes you think it's going to be any different in this instance?
You see, Ghana has started listening to us. In the past, when we talk, people felt we were just talking because we are in opposition. We started sounding this alarm months and years ago. Nobody cared. Today, people are listening. So when we raise the issues, I know civil society and people like yourself will join us to demand for those information and for Ghana, for the government of the day to do what is right. I am very confident that all of us, as the people of this country, do not want catastrophe. We want this country to succeed. We want to secure the future of this country. And so when we demand those things, the government now, unlike yesterday, they will have no choice than to listen.
Tell me, you speak about this figure that we do not know that we would require to get our economy back on track. Do you have a guesstimate, an approximation in mind? I'm sure looking at the economy, the snapshot of it, you would be able to say this and that. I think we would require this much to get ourselves out of the doldrums. What is your guesstimate?
You see, it is difficult without full data. If the government fails to give you the full data, full information, the true state of the Ghanaian economy, your prognosis may not really be exactly what the nation requires.
You're a ranking member on the Finance Committee. I'm sure things pass through that you see. You may not have the full facts, but sitting where you do, what is your approximation? What is your thinking?
So to start it, based on the information that I have or I've seen, it may not be the full details because I know that is not the full information. To start with, the government must lead the way by cutting some expenditures and for us to start living within our means. That's the first point. The waste in the system must go away. The government must lead the way in cutting some of this waste. Some of government attitude must start going. If you are going to commission what you call KVIP, please don't go with 13 Land Cruisers and then borrow to buy fuel into those cars. Live within your means. First of all, we should cut those expenditures. And secondly, we should look carefully at revenue. There are low-hanging fruits out there. GRA must be up and doing. The leakages in the system is just too much. It looks like nobody is paying attention to tax avoidance and evasion. It looks like. That is what it looks, because when you look at the numbers, it's worrying and scary. GRA can do better than they are doing. And why are they doing so? It means obviously somebody somewhere is not doing what they have to do. Supervision that the Ministry of Finance must give to GRA is not forthcoming. I don't see that. So that is the first point. And when we start doing that with the massive adjustment, immediately, in fact, I've said that the next budget is a do or die for Ghana, in the sense that it cannot fail. We cannot signal to the market that we are not ready to deal with the situation. In fact, the next budget must show a minimum of 2% positive primary balance. 2%. The deficit levels are far too much, and the deficit is the way you accumulate your debt. So we should start showing that we are not borrowing to pay our debt immediately. And how do you do that? It's revenue and expenditure alignment. And that is what the government must start doing. Until then, I'm afraid.
Dr. Isumeng, so you've been following the conversation keenly. I would give you a first bite in terms of what your thoughts are on the thoughts of Dr. Attoforsen. Do you essentially agree with him? Do you disagree with him? And then I would like you to get into the bit about our banks, because if we're going to do this locally, focus more on the local private businesses, the banks are going to be affected. And then there is the threat of insolvency for the banks themselves, which could lead to another banking sector cleanup. We are not even done paying for the first. About 25 billion plus Ghana cedis expended on that enterprise. What would all of that mean?
Let me start with what I make of his submission. I think the first thing that I agree with is, having a conversation, a national conversation about exactly where we want to go with our economy from where we are now. And I think I've been a little bit disappointed that even though, we've been told that we are discussing a program with the IMF, and generally, that when you go to the IMF, there's going to be some revenue measures and some expenditure measures. But I would have thought by now that the government would have engaged a little bit more than they have. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
You mean engaged the IMF more than they have?
No. Engage domestic stakeholders.
Right.
The moment this announcement was made, we heard some of the labor unions go out and make statements in terms of what they may or may not accept. So I think, the government will make its own life easier if there was a little bit more engagement, broad-based engagement and consultation. Because whatever deal is agreed with the IMF is going to be very difficult to implement if, the public is not on board. Because the extent of our problems is going to require some very deep cuts. And generally, it would be good if everybody gets an understanding of the situation we are in, and there's some level of agreement about what we need to do going forward. So on that score, I think it's been quite problematic that there hasn't been as much engagement locally, domestically, as it could have been. Then, in terms of the suggestions, I think earlier on when I joined, I heard the point that a co-panelist was making about ultimately what it comes down to, and that is what comes to the ordinary Ghanaian.
Right.
It will take a while before, things return to anything called normal for us. But, sometimes the problem with that is that we think that, once we stabilize the macroeconomy, things will get better. In this particular instance, I get a sense that we need to get the real side of the economy going for any fiscal reforms to be very successful. At the time where prices are rising and household incomes are going down, it's going to be really difficult for government to raise extra revenue if, the economy is not improving. It's much easier for the government to raise more revenue when the economy is thriving than the current situation we are in. In terms of what happens with the financial position of the banks, I think, the local banks hold a chunk of the domestic debt.
Right.
So obviously, if, there is some form of risk, there is a restructuring, and depending on the nature, they are obviously going to take a hit. The question is, what is their...
And it's going to be a major hit because we've borrowed a lot from these local banks. And if we pull the rug from under them, so to speak, it's going to mean that they're going to be in dire financial straits. And like I said, that could lead, as some have suggested, to another banking sector cleanup. What would all of that mean?
Well, I hope you don't get there. And I hope that as the government is contemplating this, it is keeping an eye on the financial position of the bank and their strength. Because, don't forget that we haven't finished paying our last bailout bill, the cleanup bill. We haven't finished paying, and it's been presented as a big source of where our debt position is. So obviously, it won't be prudent to try and pile on things that will require that we have to go back and clean them again. Because the financial sector cleanup has been very costly, not just in terms of money, taxpayers' money, but also loss of jobs and other things. So the problem is that at the moment, it's really hard to see, we don't really have enough information. The government has not really come out to confirm or deny whether really this is going on. So there's just a little bit of speculation going on. But my sense is that having recently done banking sector cleanup, we will not do things that would jeopardize the financial position of the bank to need another bailout, because that's just not going to be acceptable.
I'll go to Ato on that same matter. So we know that when it comes to debt restructuring, it could be a win-win affair. For the company that holds the lending or which is owed, it could avoid getting a lower rate than if bankruptcy had been declared. And for the entity that would have declared bankruptcy, it would also be paying less. It would get some breathing space and all of that. But in reference to the banks and their insolvency, how bad would it be? Like Dr. Esuming says, we are not out of the woods when it comes to the previous banking sector cleanup. If we have to go that way again, what would be the implications on our economy?
Are you talking to me?
Dr. Forson, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think you rightly said the banks are already struggling. And let me put it this way. The banks, they are in the business of mobilizing depositors' money and investing the depositors' money for profit. So if they take your money, for instance, and pay you, let's say, 5%, and decide to sell it to government at 6%, that money doesn't belong to them, but the spread between 5 and 6, which is 1%, is their profit. Now, if the government comes in and say that, to start with, even though you took the money at 5%, I am going to give you a haircut on the interest. Instead of paying you 6%, I'm going to pay you 4%. In the first place, the bank is at a loss of 1%. So they are going to lose money. Number two, they took 1 cedi from you and decided to pay you 5% for that 1 cedi. If government comes and says that the 1 cedi they took from you, they can't pay you the 1 cedi, but they are going to pay 70 pesos. It means they've lost 30 pesos. That money, the banks, they have lost the money. And it means the banks must look for the money and pay the individual. Where are they getting the money from? They will have to take it from their investment. So if they take it from their investment, which is their capital, gradually the bank will lose their capital. And if they lose their capital, what it means is that they have to recapitalize. The shareholders will have to cough some money. If they can't cough the money, it becomes insolvency. Then the bank becomes insolvent. Now, this is the scenario that we should expect. The banks are going to be forced to accept a haircut on principal and sometimes on interest, or one of them. We need to understand that some of the banks may be able to take it, but others may not be able to take it. Those that are not able to take it will have no choice than to declare bankruptcy or insolvency. That is where we are going. And is that what we want? I don't think so. We've seen one of them already when the state had to pay huge amount of money to deal with the situation. And number two, we saw the losses in terms of employment and the impact on the Ghanaian economy already. I do not think we are in a position to handle another banking sector cleanup. I don't think so. I think the situation is something that the state must think carefully before they act. And that is why I'm saying that I do not believe that it is a decision that the government alone must take. All of us must come on the table and decide appropriately. So we shouldn't leave it to only one party to deal with the situation.
Before I get to Sairam Kawa briefly, Doc, I just want to know, so would it be reckless then to go down this road? And I use the word carefully because we're talking about other people's money. We know with the banking system, it's not their money by and large. It is people's money that they lend, that they give out. So if the banks are going to suffer these repercussions...
It looks like there's some interference.
Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you now.
Right. I'm saying the money that the banks lend is other people's money, other individuals and entities' money. Isn't reckless then to go down this road? Because what it would mean is we could force some of these banks to go under, and that could lead to, I don't know whether you're getting what I mean, but we've had an instance
reckless
where
on the part of the government, the part of the banks, you mean?
Exactly. So we are still struggling to pay some people from owing to the last banking sector cleanup. This could create another such situation. Would it be reckless to go down that road?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's obviously reckless. I mean, the manner in which the government handled the first banking sector cleanup is a world record. I've never seen any country handling the banking sector crisis of this magnitude in such a way. I've never seen one like that. I mean, to the extent that the state had to have so much money for that purpose. That, for me, is reckless, needless, and could have been avoided.
I just want you to put the two side by side. I'm saying government has to do this. You've admitted that government has to go down the road of debt restructuring. I'm just saying that putting that side by side with what the implications could be on the banks, would it be reckless? I mean, look at it from those angles. Government has to do this.
You see, I think you've answered it. Government has to do it. There's no choice. Government has to do it. But the question is, how does the government want to do it? Do you want to put the burden on local investors and local banks, or you want to put the burden on foreign investors? If they decide to put the burden on foreign investors, then it is avoidable for government to take a decision that will collapse banks, that will affect local investment, and have a long-term impact on local growth or the country's growth. That is a big question. So I will not conclude by saying it's reckless, but I will say that government must be careful. They've been reckless enough to draw us to this level. They should not be reckless again in taking decisions that will affect the long-term growth of this country. They should evaluate it all, do better consultation, get everyone else to input into it by giving us the full information, and then we decide carefully the way to go. All right. That is what I'm interested in.
Hold for me, Dr. Forson. Let me bring in Sairam Kawa, Senior Lecturer at the UCC School of Business. You've missed a chunk of the conversation, but quickly, when it comes to the issue of insolvency, what would be your prognosis, if you like? What would you like to see to avoid a meltdown, another meltdown in the banking sector?
All right, thank you very much. The first banking sector cleanup that we had, where the banks have been merged to be one, that was good. So we have the Consolidated Bank Ghana that is operating now. But the other aspect of the cleanup that is the investment and savings and loan banks, that is where we had a lot of challenges, where people's monies are still locked up. People have not been able to receive their investment over a period of time. And then there is no way throughout this particular one. The way forward where we are discussing this for government is to make sure that this time around, the clean up should not be a way of closing down the banks or dissolving the institutions. It should be a way of putting in competent management. Bank of Ghana have the capacity to ensure that they get competent people who will manage these particular systems, invest in technology that they will use to monitor whatever these people are doing, and then try as much as possible to prosecute those who have mismanaged the funds of the bankers. A lot of the banks that have liquidity challenges that we have are as a result of investment in long-term assets. Some have gone into real estate, some have gone into construction, and the rest. The mandate of these banks are not supposed to do that. The bank or the Specialized Deposit Taking Institutions Act, the banks are not supposed to do that. Bank of Ghana is to ensure that they focus mainly on banking business. And once they are not doing that, this is what we have seen in the past. We don't want that to happen. If the discussion continues that we are going to have another banking sector clean up, where people have already suffered, there is going to be panic withdrawal. And that panic withdrawal could worsen the already existing situation that we find ourselves in. And so Bank of Ghana, the government must be much careful in doing that so that it will not trickle down to other financial sector services that we are enjoying, such as pensions, insurance, and the rest that we are enjoying now.
Interesting points you make. Let me also bring in Dr. Suming quickly, because I want all of you to address this particular question. When it comes to our drawing rights, and it's not an infinite, pool. When it comes to the IMF and our drawing rights, we've, drawn up to about the equivalent of 1.69 billion in terms of our obligations to them. And our drawing rights, that is equivalent to about 178%. And now, where we find ourselves means that we've been ranked number 1 in Africa with the largest outstanding debt to the IMF. The IMF is in town today. Stéphane Roudet is leading the delegation. What are some of the discussions that you would like to see tabled in respect of that? Because if we add on more debt, Kasela Tuforsen has said, in about 3 years, we'll still be in the wilderness. What would you like to see, Dr. Suming? Okay, so let me bring in Seyram Kawo on that. Before later, I'll bring in Dr. Suming on that. So I'll focus on Seyram Kawo and Dr. Forsen on this question. Seyram?
The debt that we are going in for from the IMF is a necessary evil that we need to undertake. We need that particular one to come in. It's not a kind of debt that we go and borrow from the IMF and then they will leave us to do whatever we want to do. IMF will make sure that they monitor the operations and the performance of the debt and what we said we are going to use it for. That, in a way, is going to bring some kind of fiscal discipline and then would bring about some investor confidence in our economy. If we just have to say that, oh no, we are not going to incur any other debt again. The debt is part of us, and we only have to make sure that we use the money for profitable ventures. What I want to see government putting up is that, look, we are taking this money to build a hospital. This is how much we want to realize from the hospital, and we are going to use that money to pay. This is the money we are going to use for a particular factory. This is how much we are realizing from the factory, and we are going to use it to pay. The sinking fund of the Republic of Ghana must be reactivated.
so that we put in monies in the sinking fund, so that when the time for 3 years comes for us to pay the loan, we have money in that particular account that we can use to pay. The sinking fund account is one of the heavily regulated funds that we have in our Public Financial Management Act. And so if that fund is able to operate efficiently, that government will not misuse that particular amount of fund that we have in our public sector, that will go away to help us pay off this amount of debt that we are going to incur. We cannot say that we are not going for the money. We need it. But the prudent use and management of this money is what is needed. We put it in investment projects that will yield the necessary returns for us. A situation where I want IMF to come in and ensure that government, when they are giving money to businesses and the rest to operate, such as we have done in the COVID area, are giving to people who are in real business and not to party people who will not be able to pay the funds back. The fiscal discipline that is needed in terms of our fiscal expenditure must be enforced to the latter, so that we are going to an election year. Government will not start doing things such as they have done during the COVID area, free electricity, free water, which in those times were actually not needed, because not a lot of Ghanaians have benefited from this particular project. You have DCEs, MCEs, and the rest giving funds to people, and they claim that they are helping these people do businesses, and these funds are not repayable. These are not ways of using the public funds, even if it is their own personal money. And so there should be a way that when monies are given out, we have a way of receiving the money, and then we can pay off these funds over a period of time. Otherwise, we'll go back and be doing the same things and be returning to IMF for a long period of time to come. Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me now, Sairam?
You now. I think you went off, right?
Yes. My apologies for that. A bit of a technical glitch. I was just saying a very, very big thank you for your thoughts on this matter. Of course, as the IMF comes into town today, we'll see how matters proceed from there. Sairam Kawo is a senior lecturer at UCC School of Business. Let me come back to Dr. Cashew Forson on some of those same briefs that we see. So with the IMF, now in terms of our drawing rights, we've overshot it. And in fact, we're even ahead of the likes of Sudan, South Sudan, and the DRC. But this is no laughing matter. We have to get that package, like Sairam says, like you have confirmed, like Dr. Isuming has confirmed as well. How do we navigate these turbulent waters?
Thank you. Although the truth is that when it comes to all the wrong boxes, or all the boxes that should not be ticked, Ghana has ticked it in our economic management, unfortunately, the last 4 or 5 years. What we'll need to do now is to untick them or start doing things right. For example, Sarah made the point that Ghana needs to reactivate the sinking fund. Under ex-President Mahama, the NDC first decided to build what we call buffers by establishing a sinking fund. When we were leaving office, we had close to $500 million in the sinking fund. And that is why, as soon as they came to office, this current administration came to office, there was one major Eurobond that President Kufuor took. The first one was due, and the government could pay without obviously making any concern. Today, if this government leaves office in 2024. In 2025, a number that are going to fall due. This government has actually spent every penny in the sinking fund, and as we speak, the second fund of the Republic of Ghana is empty. How do they expect this country to actually repay those debts? Investors are watching. They have seen clearly that Ghana is not in a position to repay some of these huge debts that are going to fall due. Today, Ghana is the country that owes the largest Eurobond as a percentage to its GDP. We've set those records. So it's not only the IMF special drawing right that we owe the largest. I mean, everywhere. If you come to the domestic market, worldwide, Ghana is the country that is paying the highest in terms of coupons that we are interest rate that we are paying for of our treasury bills. Almost every single thing we have set a wrong record. What we are witnessing today is how not to manage an economy. The government needs to change that attitude. And it's only the government that can do it. I can't sit in a position and manage an economy for a government. I can only advise. But obviously it's an advice. They are not bound by it. And it means that all of us will have to force the government to do the right thing. So we can only do the right thing. We can only force them for them to do the right thing. Unfortunately, they have decided not to accept it. Fast forward, what we need now as a country is a credible IMF program. I am happy that the fund is in town now. The negotiation will officially start today. I know the IMF will do what is right. But you see, they should front-load the adjustment so that front load will signal positive signals to the investor community. That alone will mean that the depreciation of our currency will slow down. That alone will mean that the business confidence that has gone down to record low will start coming back. And it will mean that the economy will start recovering. I know that recovery will take a minimum of 3 years with measures. And I say this for a reason. It will not recover unless you start doing the right thing, the heavy lifting. It must start now. But if they decide to backload the heavy liftings, economic recovery will take up to 5 years. And it means we are all doomed going forward. We need to accept it and take the bitter pill today to secure the future and the livelihood of the Republic of Ghana. That is what we all have to do.
I want you to address two quick issues as we wrap. One has to do with the central bank, which has suggested that any entities operating in dollar terms, and there are a few of them that are allowed by the nature of their work to do so, would find themselves in dire straits. And of course, it's all about the dollarization of our economy. In terms of stabilizing the cedi, how well do you feel this enterprise is going to fare?
To start with, difficult times call for difficult measures. Where we are now as a country, the country is not in a good position to allow some of these things to continue. We cannot continue to dollarize our economy. We cannot. I mean, there are times that when there are good times, you can allow a bit of those things to go on. But in difficult times like this, obviously we'll call for difficult measures. So I can agree with the central bank that we cannot allow this dollarization to continue. It must stop and must be stopped in a way that will at least stop the depreciation of the currency. Because if the currency depreciates, it affects all of us, our livelihood. And so there's a need for us to understand that where the currency is going, the country is at risk. It is going to affect inflation, going to affect the way our livelihood is managed, and obviously it's going to have a negative impact on the public debt accumulation. Because obviously you have debt in dollars. And when your currency depreciates, you have to change more dollars to service those debts. And it will mean that we need to spend more. And already we don't have enough money to spend. So it can only make our situation worse than anticipated. And so I don't think that will have a massive impact on the currency itself, but it will have some impact where people think that we should price everything in dollars. People that doesn't need dollars are using dollars and all of that. I think we should start putting a stop to that. We should put a stop to that. But you see, these things are happening for a reason. It's happening because people have lost confidence in the local currency. 1 cedi 2 months ago, it's not the same 1 cedi. A businessman who had $100,000 equivalent in cedis has lost almost half of his capital or her capital. That is a difficulty. So when that happens, everybody will race to change their money and use the money to invest in what we call in a US dollar loan facility. Today, it is the order of the day, obviously because of what is happening in the economy. So we should stabilize the economy first, and that's what I'm saying. The single most important thing to us as a country is to stabilize the economy. If we stabilize the economy, we can think of structural things. We can think of investment in the real sector. We can think about things that will secure the long-term growth. But today, what is important is to bring confidence back and secure stability. Every other thing will be added after stability.
The final bit is actually based on what you've been telling us. So, Director of Research at the IEA, the Institute of Economic Affairs, Dr. John Kwache, has indicated that another redenomination of our currency could be imminent on the back of our skyrocketing inflation and on the back of the depreciation of our currency, the Ghana cedi. Do you forecast same? Do you see that happening? He has said, though, that this redenomination would mean nothing because it would just be maybe taking away or adding zeros, but it wouldn't mean much for the real state of our currency. What's your quick take on that? And it's a wrap.
I concur.
You agree?
I agree with Dr. Kwache 100%. Because the rate of inflation, the rate of depreciation of our currency obviously suggests that if this path continues for 2 to 3 years, maximum 5 years, we have to go back to the same route. Maximum 5 years, we go back to the same route. And he's only right. I don't know the model he's using, but I have thought of same. And I was surprised to read yesterday that he's thinking same. So obviously, I agree with him. And I don't think he's alone in the room. Most people are reading the room are saying that, hey, this is where we are going as a country. And that is what I'm saying. To avoid all of this, one thing, there's only one thing that we need, stability. Government must start the heavy lifting now to stabilize the economy and our livelihood. If you do stability, if the economy stabilizes, then obviously all other things will happen. But you don't stabilize the economy and go to sleep. When you stabilize the economy, this is the time for you to pay attention to the micro sector of the economy, the real sector. You pay attention to the real sector by removing the waste and bringing in efficiency and making sure that they can drive the economic growth. Your macro will certainly look good. That is where we are going.
If we get to the point of redenomination, just quickly, is it a bad thing? I mean, we've done it before under Kufuor, and there were so many technical reasons we had to go down that route. Is it a bad thing to redenominate?
I will not conclude that it's a bad thing. There are pros and cons to everything. Have a good side. I mean, in the end, the value is the same, but what it means is that there are certainly pros and cons of it. I think we can have that discussion separately. Okay. There are those who argue against it and those who argue in favor. The question is, as a country, we've done it before. Let us assess it to see the impact of what we did, whether it helped the economy or not. So there are case studies, direct case studies. Ghana can testify to it. Let's do some research and see whether it favored us or it didn't favor us before we take that route.
Doc, we're immensely grateful that you've spent this time with us this morning. It's been very insightful. Thank you so much for your time. And that is Dr. Cashew Fawcett, of course, member of the Finance Committee, ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament. He's also a former Deputy Finance Minister. He joined us. We also had Sairam Kawa, Senior Lecturer, UCC School of Business, and Dr. Patrick Esuming of the University of Ghana Business School. All of them joined us for this discourse on the economy. But coming up next, we are going to be exploring different facets of our national life, including that latest Hotline documentary, Smuggler's Paradise. And it talks about the smuggling of cooking oil from neighboring countries into Ghana and vice versa. We'll be getting you some details of that and other stories. Do stay with us on the AM show. We'll be right back.
Hello, good morning and welcome back to the AM show. Now let's head to the Central Region where Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is expected to visit Cape Coast today. He commissioned some roads and projects there. Central Region correspondent Richard Kojako joins me with more. Richard, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, has the Vice President arrived?
No, he's not arrived. The event is slated for 10 a.m. and so there is, you see that there is an advance team and then where the ceremony would be done. But he's not arrived yet. We are waiting for him. The program actually starts at 10 a.m.
All right, so can you tell us about some of the projects and roads he would be inspecting and commissioning?
So close to 2 years ago, the Vice President was in Cape Coast to Cashew for the commencement of construction of some Cape Coast and other inner city roads, and so they tagged it the Sino Hydro project. So where the shortcutting was done was Amamoma Apiosika Road, and that road has been fixed between where they call the school bus road in at the University of Cape Coast to Apiosika, right through to the back of Ogwa Hall. That road has been constructed. If you go to the Cape Coast Technical University area, the road leading from Abra Junction to the Cape Coast Technical University through to some of the adjoining communities have also been constructed. And the Kwapro Junction to the University of Cape Coast Junction and other roads as well have also been fixed. And so that is what I presume the Vice President would be commissioning today. And so that these are some of the roads I have seen being constructed lately.
Have you spoken to some of the residents living around these projects or close to these roads, and how are they feeling?
Well, so it's a mixture of views from residents. In as much as they appreciate what has been done, they feel that it is not really something that is huge for the Vice President to come. These were some of the concerns that were expressed. Other people that I spoke to said that some of the roads that had to be commissioned today, some of them were piped just over the weekend, and so it's really much ado about nothing. But for others, they really appreciate it because the roads were in terrible shape. In Cape Coast, you could not drive very well on some motorable roads. Riddled with potholes and other things. So for the construction to have been done in these areas, they feel that it's a good job that has been done. And so it's a mixture of views from residents here.
All right, before I let you go, can you tell us about the decommissioning of the Salt Pond oil fields and what it means for the people in the community?
So, Matt, you know that the Salt Pond oil field is the oldest oil field offshore Ghana, and it was discovered in 1970. It's been operating for a while, but whilst it was operating, they realized that the field was getting depleted over the years, and so they couldn't get the number of barrels of oil per day it has moved from 4,800 barrels of oil per day in 1985 to below 200 barrels of oil per day in 2015. And so production got to a stage where the flow of oil had become economically non-viable. And so subsequently, the petroleum agreement was terminated by the Minister of Energy at that time. And so the decommissioning notices were stepped in motion, committees were formed, and other things. And so yesterday, a news conference was organized at Saw Pond with the traditional authorities. In fact, when we spoke with the traditional authorities, they felt that they were coming to announce that they were getting more oil from the Saw Pond oil fields so that they could also get a lot more to develop the communities. But if the thing has become still, and so there were some kind of deterioration as far as the installation on the sea was concerned, and it was going to pose a lot of havoc for fisherfolk and other users of the ocean. And so they decided that in order to avoid spillage, in order to also clear off that piece of installation from there, they needed to decommission it. And so yesterday we saw a new rig that had been installed with a new vessel that has also arrived from Nigeria to begin the decommission exercise. So today the decommissioning exercise would take place, and it is meant to clear off everything that was installed and to ground zero so that other users of that particular part of the ocean would be used. Fisherfolk and other people that use it, they've been warned to stay away 500 meters away from where the exercise is being conducted, and so they can no longer go close to that place. They said that they had held consultation and other meetings with the communities, about 15 of the communities that would be affected. And so that is what the top on decommissioning is about. This commissioning would be conducted. It would take about 9 months for them to end the entire process. And so that is what it is about, and it means for the people in these areas.
Thank you very much. That's a Central Regional Correspondent Richard Kojo could give us an update of the Vice President, or updates of what to expect as the Vice President tours the Central Region. Now, we have our newest Hotline documentary, and it's called Smuggler's Paradise. In this piece, Kwetanatan covers how customs officials aid smugglers and dealers to transport thousands of cooking oil from neighboring Togo and Cote d'Ivoire to local markets in Tamale and Kumasi. Here are some excerpts.
Like Tamale, the border town of Sampa in the Bono region has another network of smugglers. They are mainly middle-aged women. Do not be mistaken, they call the shots in how oil and which quantity must be smuggled from neighboring Cote d'Ivoire to Signane and the Kumasi markets. One of them is Mame Selwa. She is easily identified at Sampa as Alaji's wife. As at the time of this investigation, she was willing to sell the smuggled oil to the investigative team at 370 cedis when Hamza's price was hovering around 430 Ghana cedis. She said the cooking oil has become scarce, so like many smugglers and traders, they have to leave huge amounts with dealers in Cote d'Ivoire.
Hey, I'm not about committee. Car 7. Only know the mamma 3. And message as a more
She said it's become difficult for many smugglers to bring in large quantities of oil because some custom officials are not supportive. She revealed that top custom officials at Sampa and other checkpoints have told her the government is pressuring them to crack down on the operations of smugglers because it is affecting local business companies which produce cooking oil.
Okay. I had 8500 on flat of one of the year, but as I knew the banana. And Tiama, Pipana, or more yano, our form. Tiama, I'm more out here, one about Tiama had the 47.
But she works with some custom officials who support a smuggling business. She said these custom officials forge how much tax is supposed to be paid on the oil she brings into the country. Citing a recent example, she said she only paid 2,000 Ghana cedis for over 400 smuggled oil she brought in to the Sampa Côte d'Ivoire border. She paid 30 cedis on a gallon instead of 65 Ghana cedis.
Oh, so no omoye here. There were no bet me.
Oh, okay. The people know how much you're saying. Say,
I will do that obey and then the
500 yeah, maybe.
500, okay, so 500. Say the other no,
okay.
I'm not the say 400.
Okay.
What's the more than the
2,000.
Or 30.
Okay.
And will make me up work.
Oh, okay.
Now I say, oh, yeah, okay, I say, but I will say 50. Sister, over to my.
She further walks me into a trade secret on how to outwit custom officials when transporting the smuggled oil. She said vehicles conveying charcoal from Sampa hide the gallons within the sacks of charcoal. She also references the use of VIP buses in aiding their business of smuggling. It comes at a cheaper cost compared to paying the right taxes to the state.
Okay, I just say a bit high car.
But I have mine is a few. You are the guys in a banana.
Okay.
We go up there, no, be then I make a
okay.
Then the attaches, and I.
Oh, okay.
As I guess, oh, you're in front of Boca.
Okay, okay.
Is a VIP? It's look for I'll be on no bad. I do for people. So I say, so the quack, I may do back for 15 cities.
Okay. Oh,
okay. Drivers who ply Sampa to trading communities in Ivory Coast play a significant role in this business of smuggling oil brands such as Dinner to the Ghanaian market. One of such drivers is Ibi. He charges at least 10 Ghana cedis on each gallon he brings to Sampa.
Into the bar, 1 gallon of charges. 10 cedis. You can't buy any gallon. Huh? 80. Now, which is then the trouble than I customs issue.
I know. Any problem. Say the BM, I'm going to me.
Because I was so mommy assurance the boss.
And yes, sir. Wow. Already line, yes, kind of a gym, make us come on farm.
I approached this driver at the VIP bar station at Sampa. He revealed he is complicit in the transportation of these oils when I expressed my interest in getting the oil I bought to Sunyani. He said he will charge 15 Ghana cedis on each gallon because of the bribes he has to pay to custom officials and the police when transporting the goods.
I didn't know one antiquary much.
Okay. So, what's the number of and a super to the YouTube of them? What the baby for 5 million? I thought that 2 million, that 3 million, that is 10, 150.
You're welcome back from the break, and it's now time to talk National Science and Maths Quiz, and we're talking about the Science Tech Fair. And joining me in studio is Nana Akuya and Kumasari, who is the Managing Director of Primetime, and we also have the winner of the Science Tech Innovation Challenge, who is Nana Akuya Numa. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
We're doing very well.
All right. Also joining me via Zoom is Ebenezer Amankwa, who's the Head of Corporate Communications and External Relations at Absa Bank, and Dr. Lucy Ajapong, who's the Associate Dean at Department of Engineering and Informatics Academic City, and he's the lead consultant. Good morning on Zoom.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Now, let me start with you, and I want you to tell us what the STEM Festival is all about.
So the STEM Festival is about the mentorship sessions. It's in two main parts, the mentorship sessions and the SciTech Fair. These two programs were originally satellite programs of the National Science and Maths Quiz, but we broke them off to give them their own space to grow, because they are really good programs, but they were being overshadowed by the quiz. You know, when we start the quiz, no one is interested in other stuff.
Yeah.
So, in order to give them their own space to grow and for people to be able to hear about them and for it to get the needed attention and recognition, we moved them away and set them up as the STEM Festival. So from 1st September, when we launched the STEM Festival, we had our first mentorship session there, and for 3 weeks we had mentorship sessions Monday to Friday, and then we had the SciTech Fair culminating the month, the STEM Festival, or the month of the STEM Festival. And the SciTech Fair is also in two parts. So there's the exhibition part, where students bring their projects that they've already done to exhibit, to show to the public. And then there's the SciTech Innovation Challenge, where the students, 10 schools are selected from the number of schools that apply. And they are the 10 best projects for the year, always based on a particular theme, because one of our main aims in putting together the SciTech Fair, and especially the SciTech Innovation Challenge, is to nurture STEM leaders who would find solutions to our local problems. So what better way to do it than to give them a problem that we already have and ask them to put together a project or some solution to it that can have some commercial aspect, or can be commercialized, so that it can really give us the relief that we are looking for. So last year was the first time we did the SciTech Innovation Challenge, and the topic was COVID-19, living with COVID-19. So we were looking for solutions, things that we could do to help ourselves, because that disease is not going to go away anytime soon. And then, so Obuasi Senior High Technical School won the maiden edition. And this year, the theme was recycling, transforming waste into reusable products. And Obuasi Senior High Technical School once again won the competition. So, yes, successfully defending their title.
Successfully defending their title. All right, let me come to Nana Akuya. How was it? This is the second time you're winning it. How has it been? How do you feel?
I feel very excited for winning it for the second time. Because when we won it for the first time, we wanted it to continue, because our school was very proud of the robotics team for bringing the SciTech to our school. For being the winners.
So can you share some of the lessons that you learned from the SciTech Fair?
And learn about how they changed many plastic bottles into chairs, doing the automated waste segregation bin, and some also did plastic works.
So what projects made you guys the winner?
Our automated waste segregation bin and a plastic bottle chair.
Okay, all right. So I'll come back to you. Let me go to Zoom now. Dr. Lucy Ajapong, I want you to tell us what the whole selection process was like. And how did you come by the 10 participating schools?
Thank you so much. Yes, so we had over 20 applicants from different schools. What we were looking at the application stage was their creativity and innovation. So how innovative or original the idea was. We were looking at the level of knowledge that they had at the various years they were presenting against their participating grades. So introduction of additional levels of complexity. We're looking at what solutions they were proposing. Would that be durable, affordable? Will it be marketable? We also looked at it from a time frame point of view. Whatever proposal they came up with, is it achievable within the 9 hours to build from scratch? Because all they would have would be raw materials, and they will have to turn it into something that's functioning within a 9-hour time frame. We're looking at their methodology based on a clear logical process. And then we asked them to submit videos of what they've done so far or what they plan to do. So we're looking at clear explanation of what was being built, both in images and in video. That was our key selection criteria for the top 10 schools that ended up participating.
All right, so let me bring in Mr. Amankwa. Can you tell us more about ABSA's sponsorship?
I think, as we have said earlier, ABSA's contribution to this was born out of our commitment to the NSMQ quiz competition itself. I think as slowly but surely as the franchise began to expand and grow, the Primetime found a need, a stroke of inspiration to deliver the STEM Festival and the SciTech Innovation Fair. And we felt that as a major sponsor for the quiz itself, it's prudent that we join this. And I think slowly but surely, we are beginning to see that the SciTech Festival and the innovation competition is becoming a franchise on its own, showcasing the dynamism, the innovation and creativity of the Ghanaian, given the opportunity. As a bank, we are excited by innovation and creativity at all levels of society. We support industries that are able to harness powerful creativity to support Ghana's socioeconomic growth. And we think that by coming on board with this in particular, harnessing the way our youth is able to show that with a proper push and support, they can deliver products and services that respond to specific needs of the country. We feel excited to be part of this. And that's basically what we will continue to do as a bank that continues to bring possibilities to life amongst its clients, customers, and the communities in which we live and work.
All right, let me come back to you, Nanakuya. And like you said that you detached it from the National Science and Maths quiz so that it can, gain the spotlight and more importance can be there's more importance on the whole fair. Can you tell us what you seek to achieve with this challenge?
A number of things.
Okay.
First of all, we seek to encourage a more practical approach towards the teaching and learning of science in our schools.
Okay.
Since the students have to, whether you're doing the exhibition or you're doing the challenge, you have to put together a project. The most interesting thing about the innovation challenge is that the students put together their projects on location in front of the cameras without their teachers over a 2-day period.
Okay.
So they must know what they are doing. They must understand what they're doing so they can put it together themselves. We want to make sure that the students that take part, or gradually it would expand to include more schools. But we want to make sure that our students in our senior high schools can do something good for themselves and giving the platform, because they have a lot of interesting ideas. But it's the exposure that has been the problem so far. So we hope to be able to give them the platform to be able to showcase what they can do, to learn, but also to be able to put together some good inventions. You don't have to be a professor to be able to invent something. Other people have done it without big or advanced academic qualifications.
Yeah.
It's the exposure and the understanding of what you're doing, and we are trying to provide that. One other thing that I mentioned earlier, solutions to our local problems, and that's why we give them a theme that's topical, we had COVID-19 last year, we've had recycling. We will think about something else that's important and topical for us for next year. But the idea is that they should find solutions to our local problems. No one is going to solve our problems for us, but ourselves.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we hope to achieve. And we are seeing that.
Some results.
Yes.
Okay.
And we hope that we will get the needed support to make sure that it continues and we grow a whole generation of STEM leaders who will be innovative and who would have problem-solving skills, would be their attitude towards life would be to solve problems. You see something, you correct it.
Yeah.
You know? But if you haven't been trained in a specific way, you may not even see where the problem is, or even how to solve it. So that's what we're doing.
And you mentioned support.
Yes.
What support would you need?
Mainly financial.
Okay.
Because it's a big project. It's a big project. Through the sponsorship of ABSA Bank, we were able to provide the materials and the tools for the schools to do their projects on location. And then when they come, it's over a number of days. So there's accommodation, there's feeding and all of that. So the support that would be needed there especially would be financial. But we are also getting support from others. It wasn't just ABSA Bank supporting. We had Academic City, University College giving us their facilities to use.
Okay.
Which is great, and some technical support as well, which was wonderful. And then we have JoyNews and Joy Learning and YFM giving us a voice, so that people will hear what we are doing and see that that we are doing something good that they need to support.
Okay. Yes. Now, Nanekua, this is the second time you guys are winning it. What do you think makes you so unique? What is it about you guys?
We do hard work. We are dedicated, and we have togetherness in our club. We always try to solve societal problems by bringing up new projects. Thank you.
Okay. So, Dr. Lucy, what was the general observation of the many innovations that the students, built from scratch?
So it was quite interesting. As Naneke said, the challenge was recycling.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of people do different types of recycling. But we were looking at solutions that, one, you could take to market very easily. We were looking at solutions that was a combination of a bit of a high-tech meet a low-tech solution. I'm trying to see how the students are translating information or knowledge they're acquiring in their senior high schools and transforming it into a real-life solution application. So it was quite interesting to see the variety of projects. We had a number of automated sorters. We had one school turning urine, human waste, into a power source to power a house. We had others who were building alternative forms of charcoal from paper and from wood. We had students who were turning plastic bottles into earrings. We had people who were creating torchlights with power banks and the like. So there was a variety of projects across board. So it was quite exciting. And some of them came up with things that we originally hadn't thought of. One of those ones, I must recommend those who came and runner-up, was Tamale Senior High, who managed to come up with a project that recycled everything from start to finish. In other words, when they melted the plastic, there was nothing going into the atmosphere. Everything was recycled. Some were changed into products, some were changed into energy, some were recycled back into the system. So it was so interesting to see what these students had to offer, even at this young age.
Doc, Obwase won last year and it won again this year. What is it about them that makes them so unique and puts them in the winner's circle?
I think Obwase comes prepared. Obwase always comes, and they're very methodical. I mean, when you watch them work, these are people who are not here to joke. These are no schools who are here to faff about. You see a lot of other schools where you can tell that, they have an idea, but they may not have strategically thought it through from start to finish. Whereas Obwase comes and is like, I don't know if they actually talk. They just get down and get it done. And if you're looking at in terms of the final solution, one of the things that we always look at is what solution that if we were to try and implement right now is quite ready or closer to market. And their whole product, what they came up with, which was the automated segregation machine, all you have to do is show a plastic to it, and the system will know that this is the plastic, so it will automatically turn to the right bin. It could detect difference between plastic, paper, metal, and even wet tissue for COVID-19, and have them be able to demonstrate that, build that from scratch with the automation fully working, and then show how they then turn some of the plastics that they've collected into a recliner chair. That was what it did for them this year.
Okay, Mr. Amankwa, now let's talk about partnership. Do you think that this is something you'd like to partner Prime Time to, sponsor them and produce every year?
So already we're on board in a huge way, both this and the Santa Masquerade as well. So I think it's something that has become a relationship that is progressive and very, very exciting for the parties involved, especially for us as a bank. I think ultimately we want to see innovation and creativity on this level becoming a lifestyle amongst the youth, and also additionally in an area where the thinking becomes such that the things we innovate and create are able to go to market, as the doctor has said, or can be commercialized, so that we can benefit, as a society, from our own innovation, and then become a more internally driven when it comes to produce and services on a large scale for our own socioeconomic growth. We cannot, as a country, remain an import-driven economy. I think there's a way in which we should assert ourselves, and science, technology, engineering, and math have been proven to be key ways that can take us there. And so I think this is a stroke of inspiration, and as a bank, it speaks to our ethos as a bank that brings possibilities to life, and we're happy to be associated with a platform like this on a longer term.
Okay. Nana Kuya, before I get your final words, what were the prizes?
The first prize, which Obuasi won, was a total of 30,000 CDs. So 20,000 CDs going to the team.
Okay.
That's 3 students and their teacher, and then 10,000 CDs worth of science equipment going to the schools, because we don't want to give it just as cash. We want to encourage them to continue with the work that they're doing
and empower them.
Yes, exactly. The second prize was 17,000 Ghana cedis going to the team.
Okay.
And 8,000 Ghana cedis worth of science equipment going to the school. Then the third prize was 15,000 to the team, and then 5,000 to the school. And there were consolation prizes for the other 7.
Okay.
That was a total of 5,000 CDs.
Okay.
So 4,000 to the team and 1,000 CDs worth of science equipment to the schools.
Okay.
So those were the prizes. I would also like to ask for, because it's something that it's when we talk about commercialization, it's something that we want to be able to do, to move, not only give the platform, but we are also looking for strategic partnerships to be able to bring the projects, the really good ones that can be commercialized to life. And so we're also looking for partnerships like those with industry.
Okay. So let me get your final thoughts.
Well, my final thoughts are just that we have very bright students in senior high schools, and we need to give them the opportunity to show us what they can do, and to nurture their creative thinking and innovation, and give them the skills to be able to do wonderful things, the wonderful things that they could do. I want to say a really big thank you to all the sponsors, especially to Absa Bank. They are our backbone. So very big thank you to Absa Bank. I'm glad Ebenezer is on the line so he can hear that again. Thank you very much for seeing our vision, sharing our vision, and empowering us to be able to bring this program to life. Thank you to Academic City for the facilities, the support that we've enjoyed. Thank you to our media partners, JoyNews, Joy Learning, YFM. Again, like I said, for giving us a voice so that people would see what we're doing. And congratulations to all the participating schools, especially to the top 3 and to the winners. Thank you to the heads of the schools for the participation. You know, preparing the students to do something like this is not easy. So congratulations to all of them. Thank you to the Ministry of Education and to the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation for their institutional support too.
Okay. Mr. Amankwa, your last thoughts as the backbone, 30 seconds.
Excited that we are able to pull this through together this year. Excited that next year would be an even better step towards further progression. Congratulations to every school that participated, but particularly to Obuasi for retaining the title. And
Dr. Japong, your final thoughts?
Really looking forward to next year. I want, as much as I'm happy Obuasi won again, I want another school to come and unseat them, but I think they're very determined not to let that happen. So let's see what next year brings. Best of luck to everybody else, and congratulations to all schools that participated.
And I wanted our winner to have the last say. What would you like to say?
We are very thankful to Pride Time Ghana for giving all schools this opportunity to participate in the Scientific Innovation Challenge. We also thank our JoyNews for hosting us here. We thank our headmaster, Mr. N.S. Yuafi, for being there always for us, our teacher, Mr. Solomon Incho, and all our family members for always being there to support us.
Is that Mr. Enes? Oh, that's the headmaster. Thank you very much.
Solomon Incho, that's our trainer.
That's your trainer. Okay. Thank you very much for supporting us. And congratulations, well done. Keep on doing what you're doing. And I like that you are, putting the girls out there and you're breaking glass ceilings. And this is just the beginning of a very, very bright future, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. In studio, I had Nanakuya Ankumasari, who's the Managing Director of Primetime. I also had our winner of the Sci-Tech Innovation Challenge, Nanakuya Numa, and joining us via Zoom, I had Ebenezer Amankwa, who's the Head of Corporate Communications and External Relations, Absa Bank, and Dr. Lucia Japong, who's Associate Dean, Department of Engineering and Informatics, Academic City. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
High five once again. Keep on doing you, okay? Don't let anyone bully you, okay? If they bully you, you must call me, okay? All right, thank you so much. Now, retail prices of fertilizer have increased by more than 200%. There's a real threat to the availability of basic food crops in the coming months. As farmers are unable to buy needed fertilizer, Farmerline is supporting farmers by making affordable fertilizer available to farmers through a discount program. We're inviting you to also support us by donating 10 Ghana cedis or more to raise 1 million cedis to reach over 25,000 farmers this season. Simply dial *887 *444# to donate. That is *887 *444# to donate. Your donations go directly to the farmers and directly towards food security in Ghana. Still watching the AM show. When we come back, we get interactive and open the phone lines, so don't go anywhere. You're welcome back to the AM show. Benjamin, good morning.
Good morning.
This is the first time I see you.
Oh yeah, we're reconnecting like that, and those were some interesting conversations.
It was.
Are you a science person?
No, please. I'm
not.
No.
But you live science.
I'm a general arts student.
Your spectacles are science. Your earrings,
I'm a general arts
nose ring, your everything is.
I'm a general arts student. That is it.
You're not a science student.
The science, yeah, I know the C-top, and I won't even pretend like I do. I know the C-top. Yeah.
But you love science.
No,
I mean, what it does in nature.
Oh, what it does, of course, like the benefits. But the science itself, no, I don't. All right, let's go to our favorite caller from Kumasi. Abendal,
always our first caller.
Always
He's
our
on the
first
line.
caller. Why? Do you have us on speed dial? Abendal, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah, I'm also well. This morning, I will not speak to, so I'm sure you'll be okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, I want to comment a little on the economic downgrading of Ghana.
Okay.
It is like when you are in school and you are performing well, you praise your teacher. But when you are performing badly, you blame your teacher. Yes. So at times they will conduct an exam and you be first and you praise yourself, but when you praise, you blame your teacher. You see, on the economic activities, when you complain, they don't accept it. And when we give them the bad results, so they reject it. But when they perform well and we applaud them, yes, they accept it. So the economic downgrading, they will not accept it. But if they were to be given A, if they were to be graded A, they would have accepted. So I think that they should put things in place so that they will get the good grades that they want.
All right. All right, Abendal, thank you for sharing your thoughts. We have time for just one, maximum two more callers, and then we will take it from there. So who's going to be next? Another one biting the dust. Well, 0302-211-691 extension 2. It's on your screen when you call. Don't speak to us through your TV or anything. Just stick to the phone. When we get our next call, I will patch that person through, and that will be it.
All right.
Any other
Do we have
callers?
another caller?
Okay.
Okay, we don't.
So we could be the callers in the studio.
We can be the callers and talk about your weekend. How was your weekend?
My weekend, the economy hit me on different fronts.
Okay, tell me about that.
A part of that, fuel and everything. But we're gradually getting there. I also was in a bit of a birthday party.
Okay.
At least there was an enjoyable twist to my weekend yesterday. On Saturday, I was at a wedding, actually.
Nice.
So it was a pretty busy weekend for me. But going round, one of the things that definitely was on my mind, I was going to places that were pretty far off, and I kept looking at the needle as my fuel gauge kept, it's one of the recent phenomena with me in my personal life, because initially I wasn't paying so much attention to it, but now I look at it the way it's heading.
It's going.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I don't know whether you do same, but it's become something that I unconsciously do now.
Yeah, it's also something that I always look at, but at this moment, Charlie, I won't do anything really. But also I went to the Global
Citizen Festival.
Yeah. And it was
something interesting happened there.
Is it interesting or embarrassing?
I think both. It was curious for me because I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect it. So I wasn't at the event. Mm-hmm. So later on, I was checking out videos of Stonebwoy. I loved his act and all of. In fact, you know what? Rather than talk about it, let's play this for you, and then we'll react to it. All right, so right before we react to that, Mohammed is on the line from Mamobi. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for calling. We have just a little time, so straight to the point. What are your thoughts?
I'm actually trying to address the economic challenge.
Hello? Hello?
I'm going to talk about the economic challenges.
Hello? Mohammed, we're struggling to get you.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that I'm trying to make a suggestion as to how to solve these economic challenges.
Please be very brief. We're limited for time. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, it looks like we are actually not trying to address the problem. I think that the problem is actually coming from the unemployment issue. Well, the president of Ghana actually made this policy about one district, one factory policy, but he is not. I don't know why he has not been able to implement it. Maybe you guys should try to probe as to why there is still a rise in unemployment, because I felt that these factories were supposed to able to create mass employment opportunities for the unemployed in Ghana. But if that problem has not been able to be solved, then I don't know where we are going to move. I mean, I don't know the kind of direction we are moving as a country.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed, for that. Well, we had Global Citizen. The youth were booing at the president. It's unfortunate, but it also
How did you find that?
They were expressing their feelings. So that's a direct reflection of how people are feeling on the ground.
We've seen some responses come from the MPP suggesting that it was members of the opposition who went there to do that. Is that how it felt?
No, it didn't, because this was like, if you were in the middle of the crowd, it was like literally everyone. So are you telling me that everybody there was from the NDC? Is that what you're saying? Which is very interesting. But it's a direct reflection of what is happening on the ground. And the MPP should be scared and worried, because these people are the people that are going to vote for you in the next 2 years. So, and if this is how they're feeling right now, then you guys have to worry about it.
Well, I'll take your word for it. Like I said, I was not there,
Yeah.
but she was. So I just wanted to know what the vibe was like. Well, before we go, let's take some messages.
How about treating your family to a summer holiday in come journey to South Africa for a good time in our beautiful country. Get to know the locals and our languages. If you're looking to let your hair down and relax, or you're just in the mood for some fun, family-friendly adventures, South Africa has got everything you need. This summer, Wazanila and experience a holiday worth talking about.
Well, hello, Ghana. Happy moment is here. Let's storm World Cup Qatar 2022 with Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water from Casapreco Company Limited. All you have to do, buy your favorite Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water. Text the 4-digit unique number on the neck of the bottle to short code *780#. Choose option 2. Follow the prompts on all networks for free. You could be one of the lucky winners to this year's World Cup in the monthly draw. You could also win TVs, fridges, microwave ovens, mobile phones, home theaters, free drinks, and much more instantly. So don't waste any time. Grab a bottle of Storm Energy Drink, Puma Soft Drinks, and Awake Drinking Water, and let's storm Qatar this World Cup. This promotion is on the NLA Caritas platform. This advert is FDA approved. Remember, terms and conditions do apply. But let's celebrate a few people right before we go. Mapito?
Happy birthday to Anita Fosua Amponsa, who is the MPP Loyal Ladies Commander and CEO of Annie's Place, Abeka Free Pipe. May the lines fall in pleasant places for you today. Also, happy birthday to my lovely Ruby Sitrofi Ni Teoya, who's a level 400 physiotherapy student of Kolebu Teaching Hospital. A happy birthday from your friend Lucky Leve.
And isn't he lucky? That name is Sichope, by the way.
Sichope.
Sichope.
Fair.
You know how your South African names do to us? Well, we do to you too.
So what happens with, you see, the thing with South Africa quickly is that what is written is how you pronounce it. So how you see it is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, but it's same with this one.
But you see, the FE for us is fair. You understand? So Sitro.
It's like Sogakope.
Sogakope. Okay.
Well, sometimes the P, the F, anyway.
It's okay. So Samuel Kojo Grace is standing by, looking very handsome.
Looking dapper.
Looking very dapper.
You'll see him on your screen shortly.
Oh, he's looking fantastic for News Desk. So stay with us. Actually, stay with Samuel Kojo Grace after this.